Trying to get in an early rhythm for Daniels. Robinson on 2nd and 1. He's got the first down and more at the 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Brian Robinson! To just get downhill.
You know, Brian Robinson Jr. didn't have like an overwhelming number of explosive runs in 2024. But that was certainly one of them. He had a 40-yard run early in the season against Arizona, and then had that 40-yard run in early December, early in the game against the Titans that gave him a 7-0 lead. They went on to win that game easily, 42-19. And for him, it was one of his better days of the season. Good morning. The news from over the weekend: Washington has let teams know that Brian Robinson Jr. is available for trade. Ben Standig nailed it. Told us last week that he had a hunch, not a report, not information, which is even better, but an observational, common sense-ish hunch that Robinson Jr. might not be on the roster week 1. Now, that hunch turned out to be spot on, even if Robinson Jr. ends up on the roster week 1, because that was what we call in the trade sniffing one out. You're not going to get much back for him, I don't think. A 6th rounder, perhaps. The contract, slash cap savings, $3.4 million, not peanuts if they move on from him. But it's also not like they're super desperate to clear room, although they could use a little more. They're at $17.2 million in available cap space. That's down to 25th in the league per spot rack. But again, what are they going to get back for Brian Robinson Jr.? A 6th rounder, projected 6th rounder, maybe even a conditional 6th or 7th. For the running back that's been inconsistent throughout his career since being drafted in 2022 and not always available and 100%. What does this say about this development? What does it say about what they're thinking? That's what I'd like to sort of, take under our wing here in the opening segment of the show, a show that will include, by the way, Steve Sands at 11. Did you see Scottie Scheffler's shot at the BMW at Caves Valley yesterday on 17? Sands will talk some football with us as well, certainly about his favorite team at 11. 11:35, Ben Baby, who covers the Bengals for ESPN, will be our guest. There are some developments in Cincinnati as it relates to their very, very valuable pass rushing defensive end, Trey Hendrickson, and whether or not they are actually actively shopping him again. Is Washington interested? I don't think so at this point. I don't think so. I think they would have been at a certain point, but not now. So Ben Baby will join us at 11:35, and then Ben Standig will join us and take a bow, although he will be reluctant to do so at 12. But what does this say about what they're thinking as it relates to Brian Robinson Jr.? I'll get to that in a moment, and I want your thoughts as well. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Before that, there was a little bit of news this morning on Terry McLaurin from Adam Schefter. I don't think it's that much of an update from the moment they activated Terry off the PUP list. And that was a move that I think excited some and started some of those, fan blogs and some of the other aggregators saying that a deal is imminent. No one in the know says a deal is imminent. Schefter this morning says that things are still status quo, quote, which means they are not close to a deal. Terry McLaurin still wants something north of the DK Metcalf deal. Schefter said that this morning. Washington thinks he's worth much less than that. Standoff continues despite the team taking him and activating him off the PUP list. So that is the news that I don't think is really a big update. It was Schefter's latest. We certainly saw a lot of people, including Ben, who is our insider on this show, talk about how, yes, they activated him, but this does not get, and all sources indicating that they are no closer to a deal. All right, so Brian Robinson Jr., what does making him available for trade, what does that mean in terms of how they are thinking about him and the running back situation? Because I think there's more than just one answer. I know what the answer will be for the majority of you, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong, because I don't know what the answer is for sure. I have a hunch on what the answer is, but I don't know what it is for sure. But I think the answer from most of you will be, well, old Bill, Chikori Krosky Merritt, has been so impressive to them. They've got the answer. They were looking for an answer in the offseason. They didn't go free agency. They could have gone Najee Harris. They could have gone Rico Dowdle. They could have gone Raheem Mostert. They didn't take a running back early in the draft. I thought all offseason leading up to the draft, because I talked about this when the season ended, that I thought Brian Robinson Jr. would be a casualty. I did not think that there would be a Brian Robinson Jr. on the roster in 2025, but I changed my mind when they didn't pick a running back in the first, on night 2 or early day 3, which is what I thought they would do. I thought they were going to answer that question with a draft pick from what was a loaded running back draft, either on night 2 or early day 3. They didn't do that. They waited until the 7th round to take the running back, and I immediately changed my mind. I got off Brian Robinson Jr. not being on the roster and either being cut or an attempt to trade him because I didn't think that they had addressed the need. Because 7th round picks don't make contributions in the NFL. I've mentioned this many times before. You are looking for a needle in a haystack, similar to Sam Howell when they selected him in the 5th round, and everybody thought that was the answer. It's a needle in a haystack. 1 7th round running back over the last 10 years has made an impact. Isaiah Pacheco in Kansas City. Every other one, either not in the league or just a special teamer, or way down the list in terms of contributors. So maybe they found the needle in a haystack, and maybe only they know. Look, we can observe, whether it is training camp practices, joint practice, the one that they had with the Patriots, the other one this week canceled with the Ravens, preseason opportunities. I mean, he was impressive against the Patriots, but he didn't put on a performance like, as an example, the guy that I love, Damian Martinez, the back that got drafted by Seattle, the performance he put on the other night in a preseason game. It's not like you have, 10 carries for 50 yards to kind of hang your hat on. It was 7 for 24. Now, I did like some of the vision and some of the cuts, and one big play did get called back by penalty. But they know, if that's the reason Brian Robinson Jr. is available via trade. If that's the reason, the coaches know. Kingsbury and Quinn and Peters, everybody can watch this. They've got a running backs coach in Anthony Lynn who knows. Is this guy it or isn't he it? Who cares where we took him? We liked him, we took him, and we were right about him. Is that what they're thinking? Is that the answer? I think that's the answer many of you will have, is that they've got their first down back in Krosky Merritt. But there are other answers here. There is the answer of, look, with Jaden at quarterback, all of our backs will benefit. Eckler was probably, when healthy, our most overall impactful back. Chris Rodriguez had some moments last year as a runner, perhaps better, more consistent moments than even Brian Robinson Jr. And damn, do we love Jeremy McNichols. We love McNichols, not just as a special teamer. We like him as a back. Who knows? Maybe McNichols is the Jeremy Reeves offensive equivalent. Maybe they're seeing a bigger role for McNichols in the same way that I think they are seeing a bigger role for Jeremy Reeves on defense, not just a special teamer. Maybe they look at it and say, look, the committee, if it's not just Krosky Merritt, if they're not just sitting back saying, oh, we got a guy that has the vision, has the explosiveness, he's just flat out better than Brian Robinson Jr. Maybe they don't view him as a star, but they just view him as better than Brian Robinson Jr., cheaper than Brian Robinson Jr., a guy that's going to be on the roster in 2026 where Brian Robinson Jr. isn't, so why not try to move him? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's a by committee. Again, Krosky Merritt, McNichols, Rodriguez, Debo being involved, Eckler being involved, if he's healthy, in some first down situations. Maybe it is either McNichols or Rodriguez. They're both just as good as Brian Robinson Jr. Neither is under contract next year, but although is Rodriguez, I forget what Rodriguez's situation is. I don't think they have a running back other than Krosky Merritt that's under contract after this year. What is it that they are thinking? 301-230-0980. You can inject what you hope they're thinking and whether or not you think this is a good idea or not. My hunch is this. I think that, and it's the reason that I thought, after the loss to Philadelphia, when we started to talk about the offseason, and I wrote down, and I've kept these notes, I've talked about what window number one, and it wasn't going to be the only window with Jaden, but window number one was Jaden's rookie deal and how they were going to address that in 2025. And I wrote six things, actually. Number one was culture continuation. They have to bring back guys like Wagner, Ertz, and even Mariota. I also wrote down Chin. They got rid of Chin. But I'm like, they have to keep that culture. These were free agents, remember. The culture continuation continues when you bring back culture guys like Wagner, Ertz, Mariota, right? Terry already under contract, so I didn't need to write that one down. Plus, I had the assumption that they would sign Terry to a long-term deal. Number two was defense. And I wrote down, this was the Achilles heel and the reason the season ended one game short of the Super Bowl. Specifically, they need an edge-setting defensive end that can stop the run but can also rush the passer. We were looking for those guys in the first round of the draft. Number three for me, I wrote down figure out corner and Lattimore. If there's a concern about him, culture fit-wise, playing-wise, you have to address corner. Don't ever fear cutting your losses before they lead to more losses. Well, Lattimore's still here, but they did take a corner early in this draft. They did. 4 for me on the 6 things that I thought they needed to address in the offseason. O-line, they need, more likely than not, another left tackle. They addressed that in the draft, and they also addressed that in free agent with a trade for Laramie Tunsil. So Tunsil was really that answer. Connerly obviously going to start on the other side, but could be your future left tackle. Number 5 was another number 2 wide receiver and another running back to replace Brian Robinson Jr. as the primary first down back. They didn't necessarily do either of those things. And then I wrote down kicker. They need a new kicker. They did address that. So again, I think what they've come to the conclusion on as it relates to this is they knew they had an issue at running back. They wanted to fix running back. It's very possible that they had running backs in mind in the draft earlier than Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, but they took the highest rated players on their board. They took, instead of, in the 4th round, who were the running backs that went in the 4th round? I got to pull it up actually, but Jalen Lane was their highest rated player. Instead of a running back in the 6th round, they took Kane Medrano in the 6th round. Instead of Ja'Cory And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt ended up being the best running back in the 7th round. The running backs that went well in advance. I mean, taking away the Genties, the Hamptons, and the Hendersons, because we thought there was a chance Henderson could be that guy. And even taking away the Judkins and the Caleb Johnsons. On 4th round, it started with Tootin from Virginia Tech, Scattaboo, Trevor Etienne. I loved Etienne before this draft. Marks, I liked Hunter from Auburn. He went in the 4th round. Sampson, Jordan James, Jaden Blue went in the 5th. DJ Giddens in the 5th. And then in the 6th, it was Gordon and then Devin Neal. Loved Devin Neal in this draft. Taj Brooks went in the 6th. Loved him. And then in the 7th, before Krosky-Merritt, Damian Martinez went to Seattle. He was my favorite of the sort of night 2 or day 3 picks. He went later than we thought. I think later than a lot of people thought. And then Krosky-Merritt, after 4 more guys in the 7th round, was picked. So maybe they had others in mind, but they had Jalen Lane and Kadron and Medrano rated ahead of the backs who were on the board at that point. And they went with, at their last opportunity, a back that was the highest rated on the board. And they hoped. And now that they've had a chance to see him, maybe they feel like, hey, we got that right. My hunch is they like him a lot. They feel like, as coaches, and they see it a lot more than we do at this point in the year, clearly, this is a guy that they think might be able to work out. But the lack of experience, are you really going to line him up against the Giants? It's one of the positions you can do it. You can do it at running back. You know, you can put a 7th rounder, a 5th rounder out there day 1. If they're, mature enough to handle the whole thing, which includes, obviously, pass protection. Maybe that's it. My hunch, though, is this is a situation in which they think Krosky-Merritt is not only better, but of more value than Brian Robinson Jr. So is Jeremy McNichols, in particular McNichols. I think they like him in the running game. He's very intelligent. He's obviously a factor on special teams. And with Debo and potentially even Rodriguez, I think they feel like they've got an opportunity by committee to address this until they realize, hopefully, that Krosky-Merritt is a lead back. That's what I think they're thinking, all of whom are much less expensive, with the exception of Debo, of course, but Debo's a weapon. I'm not saying Debo's going to take over Brian Robinson's carries. I'm saying as part of a committee, he's averaged 40 to 50 carries a year in the league with the 49ers, that it's a by committee, and they think all of those guys, as standalones, as are every bit of Brian Robinson Jr. and more valuable with respect to not only the current cap situation, but the future, where Brian Robinson Jr. isn't going to be around. And now they can get something back for B-Rob. Not a lot, but a 6th rounder did produce Alfred Morris in 2012. So if they got back a 6th rounder for Brian Robinson Jr., remember, it's very possible nobody's interested in Brian Robinson Jr. We always feel like everybody should be interested in our guys. It's not always the case. It's possible that they end up releasing him. I think tonight will be interesting because Krosky-Merritt with the shoulder, and why would you, if you are convinced that you got a guy that's every bit of, Brian Robinson Jr. or better, even if you don't think he's a star, why would you even risk him tonight? So I don't want to see him tonight, because that would be an indication that they still need to see more. And I hope that they don't need to see more at this point. Brian Robinson Jr., 3rd round pick 2022. So much for that trade back, chess checkers, Rivera and company against the Saints, where the Saints took Olave. Washington passed on a guy that would have been a star for them in Kyle Hamilton. Should have taken Kyle Hamilton at 11. They traded back. In the trade back, I didn't mind Jahan Dotson. I thought Dotson had a chance to be a good receiver. Did you see the Eagles traded for Mechie? Mechie certainly comfortable with Jalen Hurts. A lot of Bama guys in Philadelphia when you start to add them up. That could spell the end for Jahan Dotson in Philadelphia. But Dotson, Brian Robinson Jr., Sam Howell, and Cole Turner. That's why you can never judge a draft or a draft day trade in the moment or even in the first year. You just can't do it. You've got to wait 3 years. It's been 3 years. That was a terrible trade for Washington, a horrendous trade for Washington. They missed out on Kyle Hamilton, a Pro Bowler, future, all pro, consistent Pro Bowler at safety. Or they could have taken Olave, and Olave would have been a hell of a receiver. He's had some injury issues here and there, but that's why, most will caution on draft day analysis, or even within the first year, a draft day analysis, as you just have to wait. Because that trade, a lot of our fans thought this was chess over checkers. This was fleecing of Philadelphia, of New Orleans. This was super smart. They got a starting running back, a starting quarterback for the future, and a starting, stretch the field wide receiver. And they didn't get any of those things. And New Orleans got Chris Olave. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Brian Robinson Jr., according to many reports, including our own Ben Standig, is, according to his sources, available for trade. What is the thinking among Washington brass? What are you thinking about this trade? I think they just have wanted to see Brian Robinson Jr. replaced. I didn't think they did enough to replace him in the moment through the draft. I certainly was an advocate of signing a Chubb or a J.K. Dobbins for, not a lot of money, very much an on-the-come deal, although they got a little bit more money than just on the come from the two teams they signed with. But I think they've wanted to replace him since the season ended. And I think they feel now they've seen enough of Bill, and they know everybody else, that they feel like they can do it by committee early, with the expectation of being able to fill that spot with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill Krosky-Merritt, at some point down the road. What do you think they're thinking? Not to mention the fact that because he's not going to be under contract next year, try to get something, all the while saving $3.4 million in not only cash outlay, but clearing it from your books for the 2025 cap as well, which, may help them in the Terry deal, which hasn't happened. 301-230-0980. Calls on that next. What do you think the team is thinking in regards to putting Brian Robinson Jr. on the trade block? By the way, we do have a game tonight, 8 o'clock, Monday Night Football. The Bengals are going to play their starters. I had somebody in the know tell me, in the Cincinnati know, tell me, looking for the text, that they just want Burrow to play a ton here, and they want him in rhythm with every receiver. So tonight's going to be interesting. He also said something to me that I did not know. Somebody could do the legwork on this to see if it's accurate, that Lattimore has never gone head-to-head with Chase or Higgins in the pros. So seeing Lattimore, seeing Trey Amos, seeing Sandra still, seeing this deep, to me tonight, I want to see the defense. I actually, much more so than last week, I have an interest in seeing what the first team defense, if it's out there, and I hope it will be, against the first team Cincinnati offense, who, by the way, already has played in the preseason. I just want to see what it looks like. There's no game planning. It can certainly be incredibly misleading, but mano a mano, I want to see if Washington holds up. And it'll be really interesting to see, to see corners go up against the best pair of wide receivers in the game, in Chase and Higgins. And look, the running back situation now looks to be an interesting situation for tonight, because it could really be, Brian Robinson Jr.'s chance to make some sort of statement. Look, they know who he is. They know what he is. I don't think he's going to help himself tonight, even if it's 12 carries for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. But other people could make an impression. The question really is what do you think their thinking is putting Brian Robinson Jr. on the trade market? I am kind of much different than I was when the season ended. When the season ended, I thought Brian Robinson Jr. would be gone in 2025. And I thought, but I thought it would be because they would address it in the draft more likely than not, with a night 2 or early day 3 pick in a running back loaded draft, somebody that they really liked, that they thought could come in and replace Brian Robinson Jr. That didn't happen. They didn't take a running back until the 7th round. They didn't even take flyers on Dobbins or Chubb. They didn't use free agency with Harris or any of the guys like that. So I thought B-Rob was safe, but he's not. What is their thinking? My thinking is that they believe that what they have by committee is more than good enough with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. And to be able to move on from Brian Robinson Jr. now, to get a $3.4 million cap savings, not to mention just an overall, cash outlay, because that's his salary, which gets paid as you go if he's on the team. And then, that's something that might help a Terry deal get done, maybe. But I think that they're looking at Debo, they're looking at Chris Rodriguez, they're looking at Jeremy McNichols, and they're looking certainly at Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill Krosky-Merritt, and hoping that by committee early, but down the road, the rookie taking over, that's what their thinking is. And all of it is equal to, in a worst case scenario, what they have with Brian Robinson Jr. right now, and they can get something for Brian Robinson Jr., even if it's just the cap savings via a release at some point in the next few weeks. But if they can get back a 6th rounder, a conditional 6th, 7th, something like that, be better than nothing. All right, what do you guys think? What do you think they are thinking? Let's start with Ronnie in Maryland. Ronnie, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. What I'm thinking is they're going by running back by committee. I'm a little hesitant on Brian Robinson. He didn't give me my parlay last year. It was 10 touchdowns, but I think they're going to go by committee. And also, I think on a side note, me and you are around the same age. You've got to see Maltese Falcon. Put that on your list. You got to see that, man. That's
a podcast inside. Tommy scolds me for never having seen Maltese Falcon. Yeah, there are a lot of those old movies I haven't seen.
Oh yeah, we have the same. Like you like a lot of movies that I like, Tarantino movies, certain movies. So yeah. I know you'll love it if you watch it. You'll love it. But I'm thinking, Bill. I'm thinking that this kid, Bill, is probably going to end up getting it. Brian's. I think he's run his course, and I think if I'm curious tonight who they're going to play tonight. And if Bill's got a shoulder injury, I wouldn't put him out there at all tonight.
If Bill's got a shoulder injury, well, we know he's got a shoulder injury. We just don't know exactly where it is. But even if he's almost at full health or at full health, if he's the reason that Brian Robinson Jr. is available for trade, you wouldn't play him tonight. Why would you? Why would you play him at all? If he's the only reason that you're doing this, he shouldn't have one more carry in the preseason. Not one more.
No, sir. No.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Great show, Kevin, and I love the podcast. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, Ronnie. Ralphie in Rockville. Ralphie, what do you say? Ralphie, you there?
Hey, Kev. Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead. What are they thinking putting Brian Robinson Jr. on the trade market?
I think the team is thinking that they need an upgrade for the lead back spot. Because if you look at all 32 teams, I think Brian Robinson will be the worst starting running back currently. And then also I think the answer has to be on the roster because you can't really plug in and play a running back this late into camp due to the learning curve the player would have to pick up. I mean, unless Cliff wants to reunite with James Conner. And also on this Bill thing.
Why? James Conner's not available.
No, I'm saying if they would like to trade for him, I'm not sure.
They're not going to trade for James Conner at this point. He's too important to Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, he is 30, so you never know. You might be able to, get him for a late draft pick, but I'm still skeptical on Bill. I know a lot of fans.
You're not going to get James Conner for anything. James Conner is a big part of the plan for Arizona because they see potentially a playoff spot this year, don't you think? I don't see it with Arizona, but there are a lot of people that like Arizona to take a big jump this year.
I think if they take a big jump, it's more so in the passing game. That's why his name has been floating around on social media, so I'm not sure. I was just one of those.
That's interesting. I haven't seen that. Connor's been a much better back, obviously, than Brian Robinson Jr.
Right, for sure, definitely. And like I said, I don't know how high you are on Bill, but I know a lot of fans are. But I'm not high. If they take a running back in the 7th round, although there has been some undrafted running backs that have been really good, I just think that the learning curve is really steep and you have to see him in pass protection. It's something that they would really have to know. But I love McNichols. I hope McNichols is the answer. I think he's a complete back. And then Chris Rodriguez, I don't know. You even pointed to it last season. Something's up with him. He just can't.
But they brought him back. Remember, something's been up with him, but they kept him this year. And so he's a talent as a runner. Let's not, I'm not saying that he's an upper echelon talent, but they've seen the talent. They know what he's capable of as a runner. The McNichols thing, look, when they signed him last year, I was like, this is just a guy, right? And he had been just a guy throughout his career. He got more carries last year than he's ever gotten in a season. Last year, he had another double-digit, I think, reception season. I think he did. And then obviously his snap counts on special teams, the most of his career. They loved him on special teams last year. There's something about McNichols. Apparently he is a pro's pro, smart. They do like him. I can't imagine he's the answer, but I think he's part of my answer, which would be they see by committee as being good enough until hopefully the 7th rounder emerges because they have a gut feel that he might emerge. That's what I think, Ralphie. It sounds like worst starting running back in the league is hyperbole, but he's certainly not in the top half of backs.
I learned from you because when we had drafted Howell, I was so high. I was just like these other fans thinking he was the answer. And if you draft a quarterback that late, it's the same as a running back. I just don't think that. Well, I didn't see enough from Bill in the first preseason game. A lot of times when you pick a running back, they have to be able to pick up protection. I'm not so sure that he's able to do that. Okay. Now, I am confident in Brian Robinson being able to do that, but he just doesn't give you enough as a running back number one. But I love McNichols, so I hope McNichols is the answer.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it as always, Ralphie. Yeah, let me just make one thing clear. The quarterbacks late in the draft, it does not equal running backs late in the draft. Running backs late in the draft, they perform all the time. In fact, sometimes more often than even high round picks. deep dive around draft time was that in the last 10 years, 7th round running backs haven't produced anything. They're all basically gone or barely contributors, with the exception of Pacheco in Kansas City. Let's go to Frank in Charlotte. Frank, go ahead. What do you think the team is thinking by putting Brian Robinson Jr. on the trade block?
Hello, good morning. Good morning. I think this goes back to last year. I don't think they were really happy with him last year, and I think a lot of it has to do with his running style. You know, he doesn't have a real low pad level. He runs kind of high, and I think they're not really kind of happy with.
I agree.
Yeah, he runs high, and I think his vision is kind of poor. He has poor vision.
I
as
like
well.
his vision.
And, yeah, I think he has the vision of Trent Richardson. Remember Trent Richardson, that first round pick out of Alabama, and and he would just run up people's back, and so because he had poor vision, he would run away from daylight, and so I think a lot of that has to do with. And then they got this again, Bill. They got him in, and they got this committee in. I don't think Bill can start right away. I don't think if he does start, it'd be late in the year. The blitz pickup is going to be an issue. They're not going to expose Jaden like that, like we have other quarterbacks being exposed when running backs couldn't pick up the blitz. So I think a lot of it has to do with he has poor vision, salary cap, and this really goes back to probably that Tampa Bay game. He didn't do well in the Tampa Bay game. He did good in Detroit. He was absent in the NFC Championship. So they
had a good game against Detroit, but Detroit was so banged up defensively.
Yeah, they were banged up. Yeah, they had no starters basically. So
yeah, you're right.
I think they're looking at all of that, and then they see Bill on the horizon. Not just yet, because again, his blitz pickup, that's huge.
We'll see.
He can't. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think all of your points are good ones. I think clearly they like him. All right. And he has looked the part at times. I mean, very few padded practices, right? A joint practice, one preseason game. I actually was impressed despite the, statistical, less than average night. I actually was impressed with him against New England. I think he's got good vision. There is a bit of an upright, but you saw the vision if you watched all the New Mexico stuff from a couple of years ago. But, ball protection, pass protection. There's a lot more to playing the position. That's why I think right now it would be hard for them to be super convinced that he's the week one guy and that there's, no doubt he's the best guy for the job on the team. But I think they probably have some thoughts that he could develop into that. And so in the interim, it's a by committee situation, which is why they'd be willing to trade if there are any offers. Brian Robinson Jr. Thanks, Frank, for the call. All of you on hold, stay there. 301-230-0980. What's Washington thinking by putting Brian Robinson on the trademark? There are a couple of answers here. The obvious answer, I think, for many of you is they love Bill. They love Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. They love Bill Krosky-Merritt. But I think there are other possibilities, including the one that I believe is the truth right now, which is they can do something by committee that is equal to or at least slightly better than paying Brian Robinson Jr. $3.4 million and not getting a draft pick back for him if they can get that, because they're going to lose him next year. They've not really been in love with him all along. And then there is some belief in Krosky-Merritt that he could develop into that guy. Maybe they think he's the guy week one. I don't know. 301-230-0980. We've got a phone line open if you want to weigh in. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We are also free and live on the Odyssey app, and all of our Team 980 training camp coverage is brought to you nationally by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico.
All right, here's what's happening on this Monday, August 18th. Per Jordan Schultz, the Washington Commanders are listening to offers on Brian Robinson Jr. This news coming after a groundswell of preseason support for 7th-round pick Ja'Cory Bill Krosky-Merritt and veteran Jeremy McNichols. Cliff Kingsbury said prior to this weekend that he likes the running back room a lot and thinks that every guy has a place in this league. After being DFA'd by the Washington Nationals, Nathaniel Lowe is hammering out a deal with the Boston Red Sox. The 30-year-old finds a new home prior to the playoff push, and the Boston Red Sox get an answer to their season-long questions at first base. Plus, the Nats, they fall to the Phillies yesterday by a score of 11-9. Not a great day for Mitch Parker after giving up 6 runs in 1 2/3 innings, but the Nats, they were able to tie it at 6 in the third inning and got Aaron Nola off the bump, but the Phillies pull away and close it out to knot the series at 2 games apiece. Plus, after months of trying to hammer out a deal, the Cincinnati Bengals are reportedly listening to trade calls on Trey Hendrickson, according to reports across the league. Teams that have inquired are the Panthers, Browns, and Colts. Plus, the Commanders, they will take on the Cincinnati Bengals tonight. Dan Quinn says he's excited to get the boys going and looking to get a few series out of Jaden Daniels and the starters. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman on the call. That'll be at 8 p.m. on ESPN. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout football season and then some. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, plenty of reports over the weekend. I think it was Jordan Schultz and then Ben Standig also had sources confirm to him that Brian Robinson Jr. is available for trade. So what's the team thinking? Netting my thought out. I think they've thought for a while that they wanted to improve at that position, and they think they have enough to, at least at the beginning of the season, do it by committee. And then hopefully at some point down the road, do it with their 7th-round pick. 301-230-0980. What do you guys think? Let's go to Chris in Annapolis. Chris, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
I think sometimes we overthink about salary cap and all of this stuff. And if I'm the owner and I can get one box of oranges for $10 and another very similar box of oranges for $50, I'm going to pick the one for $10. Like, why would I spend $3.6 million on Robinson when I can get guys in there basically for the minimum to do the same job? Like, it could be that simple. Yes, it helps you on the salary cap, but why would I spend millions of dollars on something that is basically easily
depends on what type of
now?
Oranges, like those Cara oranges. You ever had those? Ever had a good blood orange?
I think it's that simple. Why would I spend millions of dollars? I mean, that's millions of dollars. I know they're rich, but still, you don't get rich by throwing millions of dollars away.
Yeah. Well, it's 3.4 something in salary this year. They'll save something. It's not peanuts. I agree with you. I think the bigger issue is they've been looking to replace him since the season ended. I thought they would do it in the draft much sooner than they did. But the guy they got, they clearly like, and they think in combination. Don't minimize Rodriguez and or McNichols right now, and the way they think about McNichols in particular. And a healthy Eckler, let's face it, they were at their best and most dynamic when Eckler was healthy last season. Chris, thanks. Let's go to Mark in Largo. Mark, go ahead.
What's up?
Hey, Mark,
Kevin? How you doing, bro?
Good.
You know, it's funny. I've been calling for the last 6 months that they should cut this man. And real, you can't have an athletic quarterback like Jaden Daniels or like Lamar Jackson and not rush for 1,000 yards. That's embarrassing.
You know what?
And
that's why I thought he was going to have a big year last year, Mark, as you know.
I did too. Yeah. We all did. After the bye, I mean, my God, he was got the first half of the season before the bye, Brian Robinson was off. Then after the bye, it just seemed like, I don't know, it was like he would run, he would do the pity pat. Pity pat, I ain't going to run. I ain't going to do this. I'm not going and it
wasn't super decisive. But
no, it wasn't.
You know what was hard to figure out was it him or was it the O-line? Clearly they addressed O-line, but they also thought part of it was him.
Well, see, here's the sad part about that. Rodriguez would come in there, he would rush through the holes. Wasn't the problem. Look at the Atlanta game.
The Atlanta game.
He was rushing through. The other kid, McNichols, same thing. These guys had higher averages than Brian did.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he was allowed to come to camp, to be honest with you. I'm surprised they let him in here.
I think if the board had gone a certain way on draft night and the backs that they liked were there, in the 4th, 5th, or 6th, I have a feeling he wouldn't be. But they didn't pick one until the 7th, and they probably weren't sure until they got to the summer that they had gotten it right. If they did get it right,
yeah, he would have been gone. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, great show, Kev. You know how it is. Later.
Appreciate it. Let's go to Lap. Lap, what do you say? Thanks for holding.
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
Hey, Lap, how are you?
Man, yeah, good, man. I just think if we'd have got Bucky Irvin in the draft, we wouldn't have been in this situation right now. But I like Bill, just like the team likes him.
Bucky Irving wasn't this past draft. Brian Robinson. 2023.
I did like Brian Robinson, but I still think,
that's what I meant. It was like last year's draft, not this year's draft. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like Brian Robinson, but I just think, they slowly but surely seem like they're getting rid of Jay Gruden and Ron Rivera players, man. It's just funny to me. But I guess we'll see, man. And I just want Jaden to have that young guy to build with, man. On this team and have chemistry with that he can have with for a while. And maybe it's one of those guys, and maybe it's Lang, maybe it's somebody else. But we got to get that running game going to take the pressure off of him, man. We do not want him to be Superman, and we definitely want Terry out there. So
what's interesting as you're talking,
it's unfortunate, man.
I'm thinking about something, Lap. if Derrick Henry had been available this year instead of last year, God, that would have been an unbelievable fit, obviously. But they weren't thinking contention, and Derrick Henry wasn't thinking of Washington as a possibility to contend either. But imagine they had been, an NFC off of an NFC championship loss last year, and Derrick Henry was available to come in and play with Jaden Daniels. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Ian. Ian, go ahead.
The simple answer is not that good. I don't think he'll be picked up for a 6th, 7th, or any combination. I think he'll be released.
It's certainly possible.
And I think the caller who said the oranges analogy is spot on. It's just production per dollar, and he doesn't produce enough. And outside of Linnell Willingham, I don't know anyone who's a super B-Rob fan as a player.
Is Linnell a big B-Rob fan?
Oh, almost delusionally. So he's your Daron Payne, like it's just one of these things where.
Well, Daron Payne was a Pro Bowler. Pro Bowler.
You're right.
Yeah.
But no, I think what I like to see, and I'm not the captain of the Adam Peters fan club, as you know, and we've litigated this before, but I do like that they
litigation.
Yeah, that's fine. What I do like is that they are eager to make moves quickly. And when someone doesn't fit in, move on quickly. And I think it would have been ideal if they could have done this maybe before the draft and had a potential pick then. But now I think he's just going to be released, and who knows what will happen. But at least they're doing something. It'd be nice if they signed their second best player on offense. But, that's a different discussion for every other day.
Thank you, Ian. Appreciate it. Let's go to our guy, Little. Little, go ahead. What do you think they're thinking putting Brian Robinson on the trade market?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Shout out to Mad Max. Well, I look at it, Kevin, they misusing him. The young blood wouldn't hit the field till we get inside the 30 red zone. That's how you use them back. You keep them on the sideline, make them eager. Keep them hyped. We cross the 50-yard line, I need you to be in the game to punish these. I'm going to tell you now, you better beware, because if Philly snatches, what about that combination, St. Barkley, then you come with B-Rob. That's all I know,
but what do you think the team's thinking, Little?
Hey, look, I will keep him on that sideline until we cross the 50-yard line. Then
keep who on the sideline? The young buck or B-Rob?
B-Rob. B-Rob wouldn't touch the field until he get across the 50.
I know, but why do you think he's on the trade block? That's the question. Why do you think he's on the trade block? Not how they've used him or misused him. Why do you think they are willing to trade him?
He cut that ball up a lot, Kevin. That's what I think. I think the fumbling is hindering right now him moving forward. But I'll tell you what, if I was in the coaching, he'd be on that sideline until we get in the red zone. That's all I got for you, Coach.
All right, Little. Thank you. He's got got 4 lost fumbles, 7 fumbles total in 3 seasons. The 2 fumbles that were both lost both happened in the same game last year. It was the game in which they had 5 turnovers and won against Philly late in the season. Let's go to Chuck in South Carolina. Chuck, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Me, personally, I think last season they wanted to see more of Brian Robinson just because I felt like he got drafted. He had very low mileage. He didn't hardly play until his senior year at Alabama. Then he came in to replace Antonio Gibson, big, powerful kid. But I just think he was all the way a running back.
He had a hell of a lot of production at Alabama in his final year. Remember, he was an older player.
Right, but he had, low mileage up until his senior year. But in me personally, when they placed Gibson with him, I always thought Gibson was a better back. He had the fumbling issue, but when they got Robinson, it seemed like Robinson had more fumbles than Gibson, and I just felt like
I don't think he did. Gibson had a fumbling problem. Brian Robinson Jr. didn't really have a fumbling problem.
He did.
He had 2 fumbles last year, both in the same game. That was it. Ball was never coughed up at any other point in the season.
But what I'm saying is his rookie year that he replaced Gibson, he actually had more. Gibson didn't even fumble. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, that last year Gibson was here. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just felt like they wanted to see him based off potential. You understand what I'm saying? But I just don't think the vision is there. He's a good back, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he's a good back by committee, but he
he's
wouldn't
just
be my
okay.
starter.
He's always just been okay.
Just okay.
You know,
right. He
The,
ain't no
the
home run hitter, though.
Yeah, the 2023 season, when Sam Howell threw 30,000 passes in 1 year, we thought that B-Rob had really become more versatile as a pass catcher. But it was really the volume of passes that resulted in some of that. By the way, Gibson had one bad fumbling season, his second season, but it was a bad fumbling season. He fumbled 6 times, lost 3 in that season in 2021. For those of you I didn't get to, apologize. We can come back to this later on in the show. Steve Sands is going to join us next. I'll ask him about Brian Robinson Jr. He's a huge fan of the team. But we'll also talk about, my God, Scottie Scheffler, an absolute machine. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We are free and live on the Odyssey app. And don't forget, when we talk Washington training camp coverage here on the Team 980. It's brought to you nationally by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico.
Look at Scheffler. Can you believe what you just saw? Bobby Mack can't.
Fifth PGA Tour win of the season, I think in 10 starts. That was 17 yesterday at Caves Valley up in Baltimore, actually a little bit northwest of Baltimore in Owings Mills. What an unbelievable shot at what was an impossible hole yesterday. Steve Sands was there. He joins us right now. We're going to talk some football with Sands. He would prefer to talk about Brian Robinson Jr. being on the trade block and Terry McLaurin's contract. But, I mean, come on, man. Like, how is this being talked about among all of you guys? I mean, are we getting to the point where this is legitimately comparable to Tiger?
Man, there's some things that are certainly comparable to Tiger. The relentlessness, the pursuit of greatness, the consistency, the time after time of putting himself in this position. I mean, he didn't win the first FedEx Cup playoff event last week in Memphis, but he was a shot out of the playoff. So he was right there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan, Kevin, of rubbing the anointing oil on an athlete just yet, but it's getting enough of a sample size right now. It's been 3.5 years since his first win. He has 18 wins, a gold medal, 4 majors, a FedEx Cup title, the only player in the history of the sport to go back-to-back at the Players. He has a chance this week in Atlanta to go back-to-back for the FedEx Cup. Nobody has ever done that before. So it's getting close to fighting off the differences between the two and starting to compare them as well.
I used to always think about Tiger that the charisma was in the game. I mean, Tiger's not like this incredibly compelling off the course. I mean, not counting all of the, the transgressions, the digressions, all of the controversy, all the injuries, I'd throw that in there too. But during his moments, it was always the game that was charismatic. Scottie's not considered to be charismatic off the course either, but some people will say his game's not charismatic either. Yesterday, 17 was a memorable shot, but for those that don't pay attention and just kind of see, God, that guy Scheffler won again. Explain to everybody why Scheffler, why he's so great and what makes him so great.
Well, if you think of our sports teams and our city, and think of our signature moments, Riggo's 4th and 1, Theismann breaking up, the potential interception in that Super Bowl, the Holtby save, there's moments after moment after moment of things, in our lifetime with Maryland Terrapins basketball. I was talking about someone the other day about Drew Nicholson, that at UNCW game. Yeah. There's millions of moments, There's a lot of moments in our life that we remember. I think yesterday's chip in at 17 was a signature moment. That was a signature moment for Scottie. You're looking for, has he done this? Has he done this? Has he done this? Well, that's a memorable moment. We remember his wins, but do you remember any of his shots at the Masters and remember the PGA? No,
not really.
That's something is a signature moment that you'll remember, that chip in yesterday. And the reason he is so great is, first of all, he's talented. Second of all, he works so hard. And he treats every round of golf on the PGA Tour as if it's the final day of a major championship. He has a relentless drive to win. He will crush you in chess. He will rip your heart out if you are playing him in gin or anything. He's just a competitive guy, but he does it in a congenial manner. And I think I told you this, Kevin, at the Masters. Stephen Yeager, the week before the Masters, is the Valero Texas Open. 2 weeks before is the Houston stop on the PGA Tour. 2 years ago, Stephen Yeager beat Scottie Scheffler with a birdie at the last hole. They played together the whole thing. So last year, this past April, I was talking to him on the practice putting green on Wednesday, and I asked him, what's it like playing with him? How intimidating is he? And Stephen said, it's interesting you say that or ask that. And I said, why? He said, because he doesn't intimidate you with his personality. He doesn't have gamesmanship. He doesn't intimidate you with his presence or his prowess. What he does intimidate you with is with his greatness. Tiger was the opposite. Of course, he was great. And of course, he intimidated other players because of his greatness. But Tiger's real strength, as far as the mental aspect, was the other people. He was in their heads from the get-go. Scottie's not like that. Scottie's just flat great. And that's a kudos to him. And he does it in a nice, congenial manner. But don't mistake his congenial nature for the lack of wanting to reach inside you, Kevin, and rip your heart out right in front of you. He will destroy you at any moment, and that's a wonderful quality to have in sports.
It's also oddly maybe in conflict with what he said about a month ago. We're talking to Steve Sands, of course, Golf Channel,
yes, it
NBC.
Does. Yes, it does.
Yeah, and we haven't had a chance because I haven't had you on since, I don't know, the PGA. No, the Open. Whenever it was. He said about the game of golf and his career, he said, quote, "This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of the deepest places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life. And you get there, you get to number one in the world, and they're like, what's the point? What is the point?" Scheffler asked. Why do I want to win this tournament so badly? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. That was before the British Open, the Open Championship. We haven't had a chance to talk about those comments. I'm curious as to what you thought of them in the moment.
Oh, it was amazing. And if you know Scottie at all, and I've gotten to know him quite a bit over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, he's a wonderful guy. And we see Meredith, his wife. We see Bennett. I mean, this kid Bennett, all he does is go to wins. I mean, this kid's
is that
a year
true?
and a half old. I mean, Kevin, he's a year and a half old. All he does is see his father win. He's not going to remember any of it, but he's going to be in all the pictures and all the videos. And his parents are there, and his sisters are around a lot too. And Scottie is a incredibly grounded human being. You know, you think of these professional athletes who are making tens of millions of dollars and flying all over the place privately and having this kind of lifestyle and that kind of lifestyle. Scottie is dating and married and has children and has a child now with his high school sweetheart. And they are completely intact. His mom and dad are wonderful. His sisters are wonderful. He's incredibly religious. I have no problem with people who are religious. I'm not religious. But the only issue I've ever had with people in sports who are religious are the ones who throw it out there so much that you're like, wait a second, is God?
Yeah.
Are you telling me God was rooting for Scottie and not for Robert McIntyre? I think God has more important things to do than worry about the BMW championship and, you know, that kind of thing. He doesn't even wear that on his sleeve. And everybody knows how much his faith means to him. So when he says faith, family, then golf, or family, faith, then golf, I believe him. And he's genuine about it. And it doesn't mean he's not competitive. It doesn't mean he doesn't want to win. It doesn't mean he doesn't want to be the best player in the history of the sport. What it does mean to me is that at any moment, he might just wake up and say, you know what? This isn't the pursuit I want to travel anymore, and I'm going to go a different route. I hope that doesn't happen until his greatness is fully reached. But that's the only thing that I took away from that comment at the Open, because he was being honest, he was being genuine, which is what we all want our athletes to be. But I do think that he might wake up 4 years from now when he and Meredith say have 2 or 3 kids, or maybe they only have Bennett, whatever it is, and he goes, you know what? I'm good. I'm just gonna do my faith work, and I'm gonna do my family work, and I'm not gonna play golf anymore. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But he is a incredibly nice guy and incredibly great athlete.
Real quickly on the shot that he hit on 17 yesterday, par 3. For those of you who didn't see it, he was deep and left and in the rough, and I mean this hole was playing at an average score yesterday at 3.6. It was a par 3. Where he was impossible because he had to land it probably in the only spot that he did land it to make it, but just to keep it close was going to be impossible. I mean, it was funny because before we went to the tee shot at 18, you guys were interviewing Ricky Fowler with Cara Banks, and he almost didn't finish his answer before the tee shot, but he just said that's impossible from where he was. he's either going to run it by, into the rough on the other side, or it's going to stop 20 feet short. How did he make that?
He's just a magical player, and that's what I'm saying. When you think of the greatest athletes in sports, Kevin, they all have signature moments. Like I was telling someone the other day, I think Aaron Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback of all time, and I think he's a magnificent player. But I don't remember a single moment, like a real true moment. I'm not talking about a Hail Mary and stuff, but
he had some Hail
moment.
Marys that are memorable. He had the long pass at Dallas to get into field goal range to win a playoff game. I remember some, but you're right. Great. There's not the signature moment.
Right. So I feel like Scottie kind of has gone these last 3.5 years. I'm not denigrating Aaron Rodgers. I think he's fabulous. And I do remember that pass and that catch on the left sideline against Dallas at Dallas, which was an amazing moment. But anyway, so Scottie's building this resume. And I think yesterday, is the biggest memorable moment, because of the situation and where it was and how he did it. That ball was either going to go long, rough water or short 20 feet. Like you said, there's no way that he was going to be able to nestle that within 5 or 6 feet and have a great attempt at par. And he ends up jarring it, and he hit it in the right spot, rolled in like a putt. When the greats step into the arena, things happen. And I'm not comparing him to Tiger. I'm not yet. But when Tiger would be in that situation, that's what he did. And, did Rory do that from 2011 to 2014? I don't remember that. Did Spieth from 14 to 17? He had some really, really great moments, actually. Spieth did. But his sustained success kind of stopped in 17. I don't see Scottie's sustained success stopping anytime soon. It's just pure greatness and a relentless pursuit of competing. It's amazing to watch.
23 professional wins, 4 majors, as you mentioned. He's just 29 years old. Do you have any sense as to what Tiger thinks of Scheffler?
Oh, yeah. Tiger has told me before that he thinks, I think Tiger's one of these guys he said this to me before, let's wait and see, because, you don't want to, jump on board just yet, but we are getting enough of a sample size now where you're like, wait a second. Tiger thinks the world of him as in a work ethic sense, in a competitive sense, in a skill level sense. He drives the ball beautifully, doesn't drive it majestically like Rory and like Dustin Johnson, like Greg Norman, but he drives it beautifully. His iron play is second to none. His proximity to the hole, which means giving himself opportunities at birdies, is just incredible how many opportunities he has at really good runs at birdie, which means he's able to score. And his chipping and pitching, I know the 71st hole yesterday was a great shot, but overall, his chipping and pitching is top 10 in the world. And his putting was 2 seasons ago like 186th on tour. It's now 20th. So with the ball striking matching up with the putting, even Tiger, who is as tough a critic as you can possibly be because he was the greatest player of his generation, even Tiger has said, we might be looking at something really, really special here. I hope he continues on this path because he's young, he's hungry still, and he already has 4 majors. If he wins 1 or 2 next year, by the way, he has a chance to win the career Grand Slam next year at the U.S. Open at Shinnecock. He's won 3 of the 4, and I don't know. Tiger thinks that he might be truly, truly special. We'll have to wait and see, but it sure seems like it right now.
All right, 2 more golf questions, and then we'll get your thoughts on tonight and some of the reports from over the weekend on your favorite football team. This may be a dumb question, but I was curious because I don't know the answer. Hovland yesterday makes a putt to knock out Kim from the East Lake final. Top 30 make it to this East Lake final. And you saw the handshake with Hovland and Kim, like Hovland sort of almost apologetic. Did they know in that moment that putt knocked Kim out of the top 30?
Yeah, pretty much, because what happens at the PGA Tour is that there are leaderboards and scoreboards all over the place. And not only do they give you your positioning at the tournament, but during the playoffs, they give you your positioning as far as where you are in the FedEx Cup standings. Michael Kim knew exactly what he needed to do. Now, Victor may not have. And it's not as if a professional golfer is going to miss a putt.
Well, of course not. Yeah. I just didn't know if Hovland knew it or not.
Hovland definitely knew because he knew going in what position he was in. And these guys are all astute with, the numbers and how it works. And for sure, you could see it on Victor's face when he made the putt that he was almost like you said, he was almost like, man, I'm so sorry, Michael. But what does Michael expects him to make it? In fact, Michael, I'm not a social media guy, as you know, but Michael's one of these really good social media guys.
Very active.
And he immediately, did you see his tweet? Immediately said, I thought Victor and I were friends.
Yeah.
Right. So they both knew that was a very difficult spot. By the way, it happened later with Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler almost made it in. If Ludwig Oberg would have 3-putted at the 18th, he didn't. He 2-putted. If he would have 3-putted, Ricky would have gotten in. So these guys all know what's going on.
I was rooting for Ricky to get in. He did that to himself, though, at 14 and 15.
100%. I mean, everybody was rooting for Ricky. Everybody wants Ricky to play well. He's such a nice kid, popular kid. It would be great to have him back at the Tour Championship. It wasn't there last year. It was there in 23. But 14 and 15 derailed him in a big hurry.
All right. How, for those that don't pay attention, because we've had it switch and there doesn't seem to be an answer that makes everybody happy, but tell everybody how East Lake in the final this coming weekend will work.
I am happy to tell you it's just a straight up 4-day, 72-hole stroke play event. 30 guys are in the field. Anybody can win. The point system is gone. The staggered start is gone. Thank goodness for both of those.
Yeah.
The only issue I have now with the playoffs, the only one now, it's been 19 years, Kevin. You and I have talked about this forever. They got it right. It's 70 guys make it in, 50 guys make it to the next week, 30 guys make it to the last week. All 30 guys now have a chance to win the FedEx Cup. The only thing they need to change now is they cannot allow a player to skip an event in the playoffs and be eligible to win the FedEx Cup playoffs. If there's an injury or a family matter, that's one thing. But you cannot just withdraw from a tournament in the FedEx Cup playoffs and then go on to win. McLaurin didn't play in Memphis.
Right.
Because that's his prerogative. And this is not his fault. I'm picking on the tour, not the players. The players can do as they wish. The tour needs to get a hold of its product and say, nope, you cannot win the FedEx Cup and the big bonus and the playoffs if you skip an event unless there's an injury or there's a situation that you can't play.
With the push,
other than that, we are set to play for 30 guys this week, 72-hole stroke play to see who wins it all. It'd be great.
Would the pushback, Steve, be that like this upcoming weekend doesn't represent the season-long win? We're no longer in that position where you end up starting the tournament at 10 under par or 8 under par, and you have an advantage over the players, and it is a cumulative thing. Maybe the one thing that you benefit from playing well all season in this season-long chase is that you do have the opportunity to skip Memphis or skip Caves, and still be in the top 30.
Sure, I don't mind that. I understand the premise, but the playoffs are 3 weeks. It's not 4 weeks in a row. It's 3 weeks.
Right.
You got to play in all three to be eligible. And look, the regular season is different than the playoffs in every other sport. Playoffs in golf is a little bit different. It's a little contrived. There's no question about it. It's a money grab. It's a TV thing. I get it.
Yeah.
I get all that, but it's different than other sports. But, you can't just hand a regular season winner a playoff trophy, not in any sport, especially in team sports, but certainly in golf as well. It should be separated. And they did that this year. Scottie got a huge bonus for being number one in the regular season. And now the playoffs begin and they start at scratch. And I think that's the way it should be. Look, the best team in our lifetime, our favorite football team, didn't win. We lost to the Raiders. They were better than the 91 team. The 91 team was great.
No, the 91 team was better, Steve. 91 team was better than 83.
Because they won it all?
No, because they were just better. They were a more complete team.
If the Skins beat the Raiders, isn't that the year they went 14-2, lost both games by 1?
Yep. And in 1991, they went 14-2, and they lost, a season ender against Philadelphia, in which they rested the starters in the second half. I think the 91 team, to me, is one of the greatest Super Bowl winning teams of all time.
For sure.
And it was so much more complete defensively than 83. They turned people over a lot. Plus 42, we all know plus 42 will never be touched in terms of turnover margin. But they also got lit up. I mean, torched, including in the Super Bowl. In 91 defensively, they were a wrecking crew defensively. They shut out 3 of their first 5 opponents, something like that.
All right. Well, I digress. Sorry, our dog.
No. These are the things that people would rather you and I be talking about anyway. So I didn't know you felt that way about the 83 team. Offensively, you might make the case the best offensive team in franchise history, but 91's close.
Okay. I mean, look, believe me, I'm in love with the 91 team. I remember the 91 team like it was yesterday. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think that when the playoffs come, it's got to be different than the regular season. PGA Tour didn't do that for a while. Thankfully, they worked on it. And now, like that, my point was, you don't just hand the Skins the Super Bowl because they were so great that year. You don't hand the Patriots a Super Bowl just because they were undefeated. In the playoffs in golf, I think it should be the same way. So they fixed that. They addressed that, which I think is the good thing. And Scheffler got the big bonus. They separated the playoffs with the regular season. But now, once the playoffs begin, you can't skip a playoff event. Again, it's not the players' fault. It's not McIlroy's fault. It's the tour's fault. They have to get together with the players and say, no, if you don't play all 3, you're not eligible to win.
All right. I was going to ask you about Rory, but we can do that another time. And what's happening.
He's fine. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with Rory.
I don't think there's anything fine, but I think people think there's something wrong with Rory. I mean, he played well at the Scottish, but that's been it.
He's fine. I promise you, he's fine. Look, the guy won the career Grand Slam, okay, at the Masters, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's a lifelong goal that he has had literally since he was in diapers. So, for people to not think you're going to have and you think they're not going to have a natural hangover or letdown, you're out of your mind. Right. And again, Tiger is a different mindset than Rory. Rory's like a normal human being who's extraordinary at what he does. And, I'm not saying he's an ordinary guy. I'm saying he's an ordinary person and who does extraordinary things. Tiger was a machine. McIlroy's not like that. So he's naturally going to have a little bit of a letdown. That's what's interesting about Scottie. Scottie doesn't have letdowns. And it's just a difference between those two players. Magnificent player, Rory is. Obviously, top 20 player in the history of the sport. And he's still not done yet. But he's fine. He just is in a little bit of a rut. But he loves Eastlake. He's won it 3 times. He's the only person who's ever won 3 FedEx Cups. He's going to play with Scheffler. He's going to be in that final group on Thursday. And they're going to play together again. And that'll be awesome. And I certainly think he could win.
Certainly wouldn't bet against him. You'd be crazy to do that.
No, all right. There's no way you could bet against him on that golf course.
Yeah. All right. I got 3 minutes. So where are you on the Terry situation?
I think he needs to get signed. And I think that the team has got to hold steady. And I think that Terry kind of needs to understand his worth. And what I'm afraid is that he's going to keep going with this. I guess his agent's it's just a strange situation. And from what I hear, but the team needs him for sure. And Terry's not going anywhere. They're not trading him. They own his rights. They're not moving him. So McLaurin needs to realize that he is a very, very good number 1, not a great number 1. And he's not going to get paid as if he's a great number 1, especially at this age. So hopefully they come together, get it done. What I'm afraid of, and I said this yesterday to my youngest son after the event yesterday as we were talking, because he's so worried about the McLaurin thing, is when Emmitt Smith held out, and then did they go 0-2 or 0-3?
Yeah, 0-2.
And then at 0-2, and Jerry Jones had to sign him. If we don't beat the Giants on opening day, which everybody thinks is a layup, which it's not, because it's opening day and you just don't know.
Of course.
And then go on a short week to Lambeau. If we're 0-2, he's going to get overpaid if he's still holding out, like Emmitt. And that's not a good thing as far as the team and the structure is concerned. But they got to get this together, Kevin. come on, man. He's too big of a deal to the team, and too big of a deal to the fan base. And does Josh Harris really want that to be the first hiccup that they make? I hope not. But they can't overpay him. It's going to hurt the team if they overpay him. So hopefully they come together.
All right. Thanks for doing this. As always, appreciate it. And I will talk to you soon. I was just thinking, before Thursday, I might reach out to you again. You're always so generous, but we didn't preview upcoming tournament. I can't wait for it this weekend, which, by the way, also coincides with some college football this weekend.
Yeah.
Real football, finally.
Phenomenal. Real football. Tour championship wraps up the FedEx Cup playoffs, and then we get cranking with the NFL. It's a great time of year. But you can call
certainly wouldn't be surprised if Steve's on the air trying to check for Iowa State, K-State scores, a score from that game.
It depends if we have a wager or not, but sure.
Yeah, well,
we have
always
been known to have an iPad on football in the booth every once in a while.
I'll talk to you later.
Sure.
Thanks.
Kevin, be good.
Steve Sands, everybody. We'll go, I don't think to Cincinnati, because I think Ben Baby is in town for the game tonight. Ben Baby covers the Bengals for ESPN. He'll join us next. If you care, Cincinnati a 4-point favorite tonight at Northwest Field in Landover. Kickoff set for 8 o'clock. Starters will play for the Bengals, and starters will play for at least a bit. Not all starters, because not all starters are healthy or are ready to go because of a holdout in Terry's case. But Cincinnati last week in their preseason opener played their starters for a sizable amount of time compared to the rest of the league, and had a 14-7 lead against Philadelphia at the end of the first quarter. They lost the game 34-27 for what it's worth. Not much. Tonight they come to Washington to play our team. Joining me right now is Ben Baby. Ben is the John Keim equivalent for ESPN. He covers the Bengals at Ben_Baby on X, on Twitter. I'm assuming you're in town, although maybe you've got a later an afternoon flight. Are you here yet?
No. We take it easy during the preseason. We save our time. We get a little extra time at home and get ready for that regular season. So I'll be watching, tracking things through our next gen stats. Otherwise, I'd love to be in the greater. I believe the DMB is what we should officially say here.
Yeah. Well, the did you say DMB or V?
DMV. I am a Dave Matthews Band fan, but it is the DMV, correct?
Okay, got you. Because remember, Bill Walton famously sort of included Baltimore and Delaware in his DMB description. Anyway, look, you know what? Preseason games, that's probably the right decision from a cost standpoint. But anyway, we won't get into the reasons that you're not here. It just preseason for me is a lot less learning for us, more for the coaches than for us. But with that said, you at least get to see your starters play. Let's go back to the decision that Zach Taylor made. Obviously, it was to switch things up with the slow regular season starts, correct?
Yeah, it was definitely something where they wanted to see if they can get that change, get better work in earlier in the morning instead of the afternoon. We'll see if it's had the intended consequence. I think that when you talk to guys in that locker room, the starters do appreciate being able to get some reps, get those snaps in the preseason, knowing they're going to play a little bit. So it has seemed to be welcomed. So far, it hasn't cost the Bengals any major injuries so far. So, we'll see how it looks tonight. And I think it's going to be big because I think there are a lot of questions on this offensive line that need to be answered. They did not look great against the Philly backups. So I think if you're a Bengals fan, you'd like to have a better showing than you did maybe a week ago.
Interesting, because obviously with Burrow and Higgins and Chase out there, and even Chase Brown back out there, they had their skill position players out there. But you said offensive line-wise, they struggled.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing. I think even, you heard Zach Taylor and maybe some of the guys in that locker room say that Lucas Patrick probably would have liked to have a rep back, and that right guard battle has really been unsettled. And anytime it lingers this deep into camp, that's generally not a good sign. You'd like that to be solidified so that starting five can get time together, because offensive line, it's very much a group dynamic, and blocking is you need all five of them to be on the same page. So can that get settled? Can they figure out what that's going to look like moving forward? I think tonight's going to be, another big indicator of where that battle stands.
Yeah, something that for those of you listening will be interesting just to note, as Ben said, because this is a test for Washington's defense going up against Cincinnati's starters and very, very, good starting skill position players, obviously. And the question mark for our team, Ben, heading into the year is really on defense, where they struggled at times last year. So we'll see the corners matched up against Higgins and Chase, and a defensive front that looks new, a little bit new anyway, against an offensive line that struggled. So where is the Trey Hendrickson situation at this point? Because it heated up over the weekend with, once again, Cincinnati perhaps seeking a trade. I'll let you kind of update everybody on where it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because we checked with sources throughout the course of the weekend, and there hasn't really been anything new. I know there's been a lot of reports out there, but the situation has kind of stood pat from the entire time. I think the Bengals have always been interested to see what kind of trades could potentially be out there. They obviously granted Hendrickson the trade request early in the offseason to say, hey, listen, if you can go find something that makes sense for both of us, let's go ahead and do it. But, the Bengals have maintained that, listen, we'd like to have Trey here. We believe that there's a contract that works best for both sides. Hendrickson has also held firm on wanting guaranteed money after the first year. And the Bengals, have only done that for Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I think there's an argument to be made. If you're Trey Hendrickson, say, listen, Jamar's an all-pro player. Joe is Joe. I was an all-pro last year. I feel like I could probably warrant those guarantees. But when you look at Trey's age, that's kind of the big question mark. And, John Keim and I wrote about that this morning for ESPN.com, kind of the situation of both him and Terry McLaurin holding in, looking for new deals. I think their age is definitely going to be a concern for both of their respective clubs. And you've got to figure out, okay, how do they fit in? And what have Terry and Trey done to get ready to, if and when their situations get resolved ahead of week 1?
What do you think the best offer Cincinnati's gotten since they turned him loose on seeking a trade, which was, pre-draft?
That's a good question. I have not heard anything concrete as to what. I know there's some reports out there as to what they may have received. I know that, they're looking to get, premium for Trey. They understand what he brings to the table. The issue is when you look at it, even if you give up a first round pick for Trey, that could be an overpay for a team, because then you've got to look at the dynamics financially of what that means long term, especially if you're going to be able to get, if that first round pick that you're giving up becomes a player who can give you great value throughout their rookie deal. You're giving that up, and then you're also paying for Trey Hendrickson at not top of market, but definitely up there in terms of what edge rushers are currently getting paid. So that could be a steep price, and that could be the holdup. And that the Bengals, if you're going to get a day 2 or even an early day 3 pick, which may be more comparable for what you're looking for, does that offset things? Is that too low of a price to get for Trey? I think that's what makes the whole trade situation tough. And for being honest, that amount the capital that you're giving up, now the money that you would have allocated to get Trey Hendrickson done, those kind of deals are typically done much, much earlier in the offseason, before the draft even happens. So that way you can kind of get this sorted out and you can account for that moving forward. So I think there's a lot of obstacles for a potential trade to happen.
Here, many of us, or let me just speak for myself, I believe with Terry being under contract, he's going to play if he doesn't get a deal. He's under contract. He's entering his age 30 season. Wide receiver analytics, post age 31 are not favorable. He can't do himself any good unless the team completely falls apart without him in a game or two that he holds out in. I think he's going to play. What do you guys think will happen with Hendrickson, who still has a year left on his deal?
Well, Hendrickson's made it very clear that he does not intend to play on his current contract. And so I think where this is going to have to, someone's going to have to budge. And, the Bengals front office made this clear early in the offseason when I spoke to Bengals executive vice president Katie Blackburn at owners meetings. She said that I think that it's up to Trey to decide whether or not he wants to be happy. We feel like there's a number he should be happy at some point. That's going to be up to him, which was code for, listen, we're going to give him a deal, whether he likes it or not. That's going to be the big question. And if you're the Bengals, I do understand maybe the hesitancy of giving guaranteed money after the first year for someone who will be turning 31 this season. And like you mentioned with the receiver metrics, they're very similar for edge rushers when you talk about their production after 30. Now, Trey, I think people around him will say, and the numbers are there to back this up, that Trey's probably a pretty young 30 for how many snaps he had early in his career in New Orleans before he got to Cincinnati and really took off. So I can see the argument from both sides there, but that's definitely the case. And maybe Trey gets the total value in the contract, but maybe not the guaranteed money. That could be a way to resolve this issue. And the Bengals have been known for having good cash flow. So, is he willing to take that trade-off? I think that's going to be the thing that maybe can get this over the line, or maybe we see this thing continue to drag into the season.
Ben Baby covers the Bengals for ESPN. I love watching Cincinnati offensively. And last year, they were so horrific defensively. Everybody knows the story. And yet there were so many games that they actually had a chance to win offensively, both Baltimore games, even the Kansas City game to a certain degree. And that would have made all the difference in the world. No one wanted to play Cincinnati had they made the postseason, and they got eliminated on the final Sunday of the year. So without Trey Hendrickson, I mean, would they have even won 9 games last year? And what would you think the prospect of a playoff season in 2025 be without him?
It's a really fascinating question. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, has, put up 17.5 sacks in back-to-back years. I think his advanced analytics are even better than the sack numbers, if we're being honest. But when you look at, I think this defense, it's really going to be built around how good the secondary is going to be. I think, having a good edge rusher is great, but the numbers show that if you can get a quarterback to hang on to the ball a little bit longer, that's going to make your whole front better. And I think it's going to be up to the cornerbacks and those safeties to really be better than they were last year. I think Cam Taylor-Britt is probably the most important person on that defense, this season. Last year, Lou Anarumo had to kind of build a scheme around Cam Taylor-Britt and not playing as well as they thought he would going into last season. And so, when they ended up playing more man at the end of the year, they won 5 straight games. I don't think that was a coincidence. You're seeing a lot of confidence from this group under defensive coordinator Al Golden. And the other aspect of this is rookie Shamar Stewart has looked incredible.
Yeah, tell us about that. I was going to ask you about that. After after the holdout and all the controversy, I've been reading that he's actually looked really good.
He's looked incredible. And I wondered how well he'd be able to put this past him. There was a lot of public acrimony that you normally don't see. And it's not always easy to get over that kind of stuff and start playing. But, you ask guys in the locker room, veterans, Pro Bowlers, guys who have been around to other places, they've all told me this kid's the real deal. It is stunning to see what he does. And they think that he's got skill sets, truthfully, that are probably one of only a handful of guys in the NFL currently have. Orlando Brown, spoke to him for a story that ran on ESPN. He said he has a chance to be one of the best in the league and, one of the top 3 edge rushers potentially. And I said, are you kidding? I said, that's a little strong. Like, we haven't even seen this kid play. He goes, no. The traits he has are so unique. I mean, he told me, he said, listen, he's going to beat you with speed. I know it. And yet he still does it anyways. He's a kid who has no pass rush moves and has still found a way to be disruptive against pretty good offensive tackles. So I think that they are able to, if they don't have Trey, I think they could get enough pressure from Shamar, Joseph Osai, came on strong at the end of last year. So that does, Stewart coming on has made this a little bit more interesting. And, Trey's credit, he's been there at every practice, trying since he's been, returned from his holdout and has really coached up the young guys a ton. I think between every drill, he's always talking to somebody, helping them out with their pass rush moves and what have you. And I think the younger guys have appreciated that as well.
Shamar Stewart picked 17th in the first round out of Texas A&M. For those of you who are forgetting from the draft, he was certainly one of those controversial guys because the production was like, a sack and a half in 3 straight years, despite the freakish athletic ability. Held out. There was a lot of stuff, but now is in camp and is a pass rushing defensive end. All right, last one for you. I watched the Quarterback show on Netflix. Did you watch it?
I did, yes.
So I came away with, I love Joe Burrow to begin with, but I came away thinking that he was the most interesting part of that show. And I want to ask somebody who has covered his career. He came off to me as sneaky, like high IQ. Am I right about that or not?
I think that Joe is very fascinated with things. Science and nature are things he is very, very into. I think that started to come across in the Fossil show. I've talked to him extensively about time travel, and he has done a lot of research into what it would take for that to occur. It's something he actually talked about in a radio interview before in the pre-draft process, and I brought it up to him a few years later, and he was like, "Oh no, I've done a lot of the research. I think he enjoys like nature documentaries and all that. So that's just his inclination is in that way." And so we saw that with his fossils talk, and I think that Joe is interesting because he has a lot of interests that are very non-football related. A guy I can talk to him about the UFC forever. He really enjoys that a good amount. Obviously, I think we all know he likes Batman now, but I think he really is into the whole Christopher Nolan filmography. So, I think he's got some things that make him pretty relatable to people, and I think that's what has found him. People have found endearing since he's been in the league.
Well, maybe the word is more eclectic than high IQ. I don't know. Maybe he's both. I mean, I just found him to be easily the most interesting part of that show. We had already seen Kirk from the one before. Kirk is, beloved by all of his teammates. I think that was a big surprise. And Jared Goff, it was more about his wife than it was even him. But I enjoyed the Netflix quarterback series this summer because of Burrow, who really is great. Now, the exit, I guess, with you is this. We've talked a lot here after one season of Jaden Daniels in terms of where he is on the list. I think he's easily the best quarterback in the NFC. I really believe that, and I think he is top 5. But where do you put Burrow?
I think I would put him in that 2. You can take your dealer's choice 2 through 4 if you want to make an argument for Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Burrow behind Mahomes.
Right.
I think I would say that's pretty much where you would sit there. I think that last year he had his best year by far. I think you'd like to see him continue to have, especially when you look at our total QBR, have him put up the same kind of numbers last year that matched what Josh and Lamar did. I'm very curious to see what Mahomes does in Kansas City. I have a lot of questions about that offense. I feel like, Mahomes, quite frankly, has the potential to be the greatest quarterback of all time in terms of how he plays the game and what he does. I don't know of anybody who really can produce that at a high level. Dan Marino, maybe, from a pure passing standpoint. Yeah. Peyton Manning had that in his bag as well. Just didn't have the same championships as Brady. But that's where I would put Joe. But, listen, I have said for years, I think, talking about greatest of all time, if I had to have anybody in the history of the NFL identify quarterback, I want it to be Cliff Kingsbury. He has hit on virtually everybody he's ever had ever since, you go back to his time at Texas Tech. He talked about, Zach Taylor's talked about Cliff being a guy at Houston who found Johnny Manziel before A&M even offered him. And so I think Cliff's natural eye for quarterback evaluation is by far the best that we've seen in all of football at the college level, pro level, what have you. So seeing Jaden's success is not shocking in the slightest.
I lied. One more. How much will Cincinnati's starters play tonight?
I think they'll probably go a quarter, give or take. Initially, it sounded like they could go for a little bit longer, but I think that we'll see them, get a couple series. If they have extended drives like they did in the preseason opener, they'll get probably 2 drives because they'll span a couple, that'll span a quarter roughly. But if they have a 3 and out, I could see them going maybe a little bit into the second. So it'll just be a game feel, and just we'll see where Zach Taylor feels that they've gotten the run they need.
At Ben_baby on X on Twitter. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Hope you're well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good talking to you.
Yep, Ben Baby, everybody. Cincinnati. Yeah, Joe Burrow was, if you haven't watched that, what is it, 8 episodes, 9 episodes, something like that, quarterback. They did quarterback this year. They did wide receiver last year. 2 years ago, they did quarterback. Netflix does pretty much everything really well. But Burrow's an interesting guy. That is for sure. He's also a great quarterback, and we're going to get him, first 2 drives against Philadelphia right down the field last week. He was 9 for 10, 2 drives, 2 touchdowns, and then he left the game. I think it was Jake Browning who came in, but 9 for 10, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, a near perfect passer rating. Again, against Philadelphia's backups primarily. What can you learn? Who knows? But Chase, 4 catches, 77 yards. Higgins didn't get targeted, I don't think, in the game. And they had Chase Brown back, a back that, was really playing well before he got hurt last year, late in the season, or maybe it was middle of the season. All right. Up next, Ben Standing will jump on. He was the first to say last week he had a hunch that Brian Robinson Jr. might not be on the week 1 roster. And sure enough, the reports over the weekend, including Ben's, he's on the trade block. He'll join us next.
All right, here's what's happening on this Monday, August 18th. Per Jordan Schultz, the Washington Commanders are listening to offers on Brian Robinson Jr. This news coming after groundswell of preseason support for 7th-round pick Ja'Cory Bill Krosky-Merritt and veteran Jeremy McNichols. Plus, Cliff Kingsbury said prior to this weekend that he likes the running back room a lot and thinks that every guy has a place in this league. After being DFA'd by the Washington Nationals, Nathaniel Lowe is hammering out a deal with the Boston Red Sox. The 30-year-old finds a new home prior to the playoff push, and the Red Sox get an answer to their season-long questions at first base. Plus, the Nats, they fall to the Phillies by a score of 11-9. Not a great day for Mitch Parker after giving up 6 runs in just 1 2/3 innings, but the Nats were able to tie it at 6 in the 3rd inning and got Aaron Nola off the bump. But the Phillies pull it away and close it out to knot the series at 2 games apiece. Plus, after months of trying to hammer out a deal, the Cincinnati Bengals are reportedly listening to trade calls on Trey Hendrickson, according to reports. The teams that have inquired are the Panthers, Browns, and Colts. Plus, the Commanders, they will take on the Cincinnati Bengals tonight in preseason week 2. Dan Quinn says he's excited to get the boys going and looking to get a few series out of JD5 and the starters. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman will be on the call. That'll be at 8 p.m. on ESPN. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Our conversation last segment with Ben Baby, who covers the Bengals for ESPN on the Team 980, is and was presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. Joining us right now is our Washington Commanders insider on this show all season long and all off-season long and all training camp long, Ben Standing. Ben Standing writes now, with Substack. He's got a Substack column. He's doing a great job with it so far. You should subscribe. Just go to @BenStanding on X on Twitter to get a link to it to find out more. So last week, you did say you had a hunch Brian Robinson Jr. would not be on the roster week one. I gave you all the credit you deserve. Whether it happens or not, at this point, I consider it to be a victory, even if he is on the week one roster. The hunch was observational. It wasn't based on a lot of information. I think those are even better when you get those right. So what do you think happens here? Do you think there will be any interest? Do you think they'll deal him?
Well, obviously the potential compensation for NFL trades is always weird. Like it's weird to say they could trade a starter for like a 7th round pick or something. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's kind of how these things go, especially he's on an expiring deal. So, yeah, I mean, look, there are teams out there obviously that need running backs. Dallas is among them, and they traded Jahan Dotson of Philly, so I won't rule the possibility of a deal there out. Then you have the Bears could probably use another a bigger back, and Eric Bieniemy is the RB coach there. If you look at Tennessee, Randy Jordan's the running backs coach there, and they've got an injury in the backfield. So, there are some teams that are out there that could potentially show some interest, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think my guess is whether they can find a trade or not would be that he's not on the team. But that's the part that's hard to know is what are teams willing to give up, and is Adam Peters willing to just say here, sure, take him, or he wants to hold out for more. But yeah, I mean, I think that it certainly continues to move in that direction.
So why are they at this point where they are willing to deal him?
Yeah, so when I was sort of trying to when I've been thinking about this for a long time now, I'm going back to the spring. I just kind of kept coming back to that they were looking for more explosive plays out of the backfield, and if Austin Eckler is going to be around, then he's half of that essentially combination. So where are you getting more explosive plays? They bring in Deebo Samuel, and he'll come out of the backfield, but that's 3 to 5 touches a game. And it just always to me just came back to Brian Robinson. He's a totally fine running back. If it was just generic Team X and you said pick one of these running backs, he might be the guy you would pick because what you're getting, power back, good in short yardage. I think he's a better pass catcher than some may think, but he didn't catch. He only had 25 targets last year in this offense. And at the end of the day, when he's on the field, I just don't think you disguising what's happening. Either it's going to be a run or he's not going to be really involved. And I think the point for any of these coaches, but I think for Cliff Kingsbury in particular, is to not have the defense know what is going to happen. Austin Eckler gives you that 3-down ability because he's got enough size to run inside if he has to. Obviously, we know he can catch the ball and make some plays on the perimeter. And I think they want more of that. And then you look at a guy like, Bill Krosky-Merritt. Again, it's small sample size, but he does look like he has those abilities. We've seen the one-cut burst up the field. He looked comfortable catching a pass in the first preseason game and then didn't just catch it. He caught it and then, juked a guy or, got around a guy to get extra yards. And I just kept coming back to, can they it's not, like I said, this is more about fit than it is the individual talent if this all goes down. So
that's among the reasons why I think it makes sense. He's entering the final year of his deal. If he actually were to get cut, there's basically almost no dead cap charge. And they do have other guys. I not saying that Chris Rodriguez is as good as Brian Robinson, but I don't know how significant the gap might be. He's always looked pretty good, and Krosky, Merritt, Eckler, McNichols, Debo a little bit. Like, it's going to be sort of running back by committee would be my guess if they officially do move on from Robinson. But I think from a fit perspective, that may be better for what they want to do.
That's interesting because I think last week you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were adamant that this was going to be mostly because of Krosky Merritt, that he looked the part. And I feel like today, because my answer was, look, I think they probably think that, between Krosky Merritt and Rodriguez and McNichols and Debo being used, that, by committee is still better or equal to or better than Brian Robinson Jr. And they aren't going to have him next year. So why not try to move him and save, $3.4 million in cash, outlay this year for his contract? Has your opinion as to why changed slightly?
No. I mean, I think Krosky Merritt is obviously a huge reason for this because, like I said, in order to let's just say Brian Robinson's on the team and Krosky Merritt, how are you getting Krosky Merritt in the game? Well, you have to sit Brian Robinson. If you're sitting Brian Robinson, then what is he doing? Then what is he doing for you? Krosky Merritt gives you, again, he has to go out there and do it. But what we have seen, he gives you more opportunities to call kind of whatever you want. So because of his talent, he's looked very, very good. He is still a 7th round rookie. So that's my only, if there's any hesitation, it's just that, we just haven't seen a ton. But I think we also can realistically say, he doesn't have the weird eligibility issue last year in college, and he plays, he's probably getting picked stick closer to like the 5th round. And now all of a sudden we're not looking at it the same way as it would be as a 7th rounder. So, he's really good. I just, in my head, I'm just looking at I think Eckler would still be, highly involved. And if Chris Rodriguez is on the roster, you would imagine that he might be the guy they turn to in some short yardage spot. So I think it's, again, probably more committee than saying, hey, rookie, go be the true bell cow. But he has that potential from what we have seen. I'm very high on him, have been since really almost like the first time I kind of laid eyes on him here. He was bigger than I thought, and you could see the natural ability again to burst, get up the field quickly. So yeah, all those factors are reasons why I think it makes sense for them to move on, or why they think they might make sense. I'm just saying that it would be, to me, sort of unrealistic to just say, hey, you haven't played much, but go ahead and be that guy day one. I just think he would be part of the group with Eckler and all that, but I don't know that they make this move if Krosky Merritt has not shown as much as he had.
I went back and did the math. Like, between Jalen Lane and Medrano in the draft, there were 9 running backs selected. So before they got to Medrano. All right. So I'm the backs were guys like hold on, where are they? Jordan James, Jaden Blue, DJ Giddens, Ollie Gordon, Devin Neal, Khalil Mullings, Taj Brooks, all selected before Medrano got picked. I wonder if any of those backs were on the list. Like, I thought they were going to take a back night 2 or day 3 or early day 3, because I thought they wanted to replace Brian Robinson Jr. Do you remember back to, the guys that you thought they might have interest in? Wasn't Devin Neal on the list?
I think he mentioned a couple. Devin Neal, I think Taj Brooks, and maybe that was partly because he was a Texas Tech guy, and we know that Kingsbury and Anthony Lynn are. But he was as I recall, like a little bit of like an older guy, had some experience. Could sort of like a McNichols type, but a rookie. So yeah, I think Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, I want to say, was also another name that I wrote about. And in my various mock drafts, I typically was having a running back go somewhere, probably higher than that. I mean, look, I was down if they took Travion Henderson in the first round. So I totally was all about them getting another a running back based on what it was that it seemed like they were looking to add. So, but look, they didn't add a defensive end either. We all believed that was the number one pick. So, you know, they had a lot. It was a weird deal. They're coming off the NFC Championship game appearance, and yet almost any position outside of like quarterback or maybe, you know, one or two others was a logical thing that they could take, and nobody would be like, oh, well, that's crazy. So, yeah, they didn't ultimately take a running back. Look, if they had never even drafted Krosky Merritt and they just had what they had, you know, okay, Robinson, Eckler, McNichols, you know, maybe, you know, again, Rodriguez or Chris Casimir Allen makes it, I don't know. Okay, I don't think anybody's going, well, that's an amazing group, but it's like, hey, it's totally competent. It's totally fine. We saw this work a year ago, but I think they're looking to get a bit more out of that group.
Yep. So I made the comment earlier. I'm curious as to whether or not you agree or disagree. Krosky Merritt's had this, you know, shoulder. Even if he's ready to go, if they like him as much as some people think they like him, and I think that, you know, you kind of suggested they've got some options, even if they move on from Brian Robinson Jr. via trade or release. If they really like him, he shouldn't play tonight, right? You don't need to see him anymore if they already know.
Yeah, so I think tonight is actually interesting on a lot of fronts. So, you know, as I said,
list them.
Well, I've been trying to, you know, piece this together for a while, and you know, he gets hurt. Krosky Merritt gets hurt in the Patriots game. Okay, but when he comes back, he says he's fine. No, but he told reporters after the game he was fine. He could play all that. Then a few days later, they do the inter-squad scrimmage, and some guys didn't dress because they weren't going to participate. He did dress and then didn't participate. So they kept him out because of the shoulder. And they're like, okay, is he actually hurt, or are they just, you know, being cautious? And then the last practice here before the Bengals game, he's wearing a black non-contact jersey. So I asked Dan Quinn, what's with that? And he said, oh, he's fine. It was just me being overly cautious. So I'm like, okay, so this is not twice you're being overly cautious with a 7th round running back. That's not normally how these things work.
Right.
So it said that they were, you know, trying to put him in bubble wrap as best they can. So I guess you could make the argument that he shouldn't play based on that. But I do think, you know, just like with all these guys, at some point you do need to play a bit more. I mean, I guess in his case, well, here's the thing, right? If he's being viewed as a high rotation guy, he's not going to play next week. So just like all the other starters, he plays this week. You would obviously, if the doctors say, hey, don't risk it, then obviously don't. But if what they're saying is true, that it's just they've just been very cautious, then I think him playing makes sense. What's interesting to me is what do you do with Brian Robinson? If in fact
him not playing makes sense, you meant.
No, Krosky Merritt. I'm saying I think it does. Look, Jaden's out there. As long as he's held, as long as they say he's fine to play, then I think he should play. I mean, the starting quarterback's going to be out there, so why wouldn't he be out there? But I think what's interesting is with Brian Robinson. You know, last year, Jahan Dotson got on my radar as a guy who could get traded because he played a lot more snaps in the preseason opener than the other players. I don't know if they were showcasing him or what, but that's what they were doing. You know, they don't need to showcase Brian Robinson. Everybody kind of knows what he is. So do you play him? Do you not? If you don't play him because you don't want to risk injury, well, now you're just showing your cards completely. But on the other hand, you know, you don't want to play him, and then, you know, him getting hurt would be bad if you're actually looking to move on from him. So, or potentially could be bad. So I think that one's kind of interesting to see, you know, what they do.
Agreed.
There. Yeah.
What else for tonight?
Beyond that, well, look, I think the receiver situation is going to be pretty fascinating. You know, all the receivers are going to play. I think what'll be notable, but, you know, obviously Deebo Samuel has been looking really good, but, you know, do they stay with the Luke McCaffrey, Chris Moore, Michael Gallup, KJ Osborne group sort of at the top, or do they mix in a Ja'Cory Brooks, a Tay Martin? Both of those guys I felt got a little more run with the ones late this past week. If that's the case, then maybe that's a sign that, you know, the staff is looking at these younger guys as potentially filling in at the end of the depth chart. But again, we don't quite know when Noah Brown's coming back. So, you know, can any of those veteran receivers step up? I think that's obviously a big question. They have not done much. At least in this time, Jaden Daniels will be out there, right? Assuming that these guys are playing with him. He'll be out there. He'll be making plays. It's not just, where he's sort of standing around and in practice, he'll actually be on the move and on the run. So that should open things up for these guys, even if they're struggling themselves to get open. And then I think the real fun matchup is going to be presumably Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, and Mikey Sandersill against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with Joe Burrow at quarterback. You're not going to get a better test than that. And the Bengals played their guys last week. This has been a change for them because they've typically not gone hard in preseason and start slow every year. So it sounds like they're going to, I don't know how long they plan to keep those guys out there, but this is a real matchup. And to see Lattimore in particular go up against, whether it's Chase or Higgins, two of the better receivers in the league after what we saw last year in the playoffs where he had a rough time against Mike Evans and A.J. Brown, confidence could go up here or, have a lot more questions if, he gets beaten. Jamar Chase obviously torched these guys last year when they played up in Cincinnati.
All right. Talking to Ben, of course, all right. Max, did you play the Cliff sound coming into this segment on Terry?
I did not. Let's hear it.
Let's play this. This was Cliff Kingsbury the other day on the absence of Terry McLaurin.
And then with Terry, what kind of things can you do now even to help make sure that when he gets back out of the field, that there's not this long transition period to get that rhythm and connection back with Jaden?
Yeah, with him or just kind of overall?
With Terry in particular.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a ton of contact with him. He's been here, but he's been working with the trainers. So until he gets back on the grass, that's when we'll start building that back up.
At that point, what can you do at that point to make sure it doesn't take a long time?
Yeah, I think, that's one of those deals. It's just time on task. And luckily what they had last year to build a lot of rapport and chemistry. And Terry understands our system going into a year or two. So that should expedite the process. But to me, it's time on task together on the grass is really the only way that you can continue to build.
All right. That was Kingsbury the other day. What did you hear in that answer?
I heard, hey, I came back to this team because I think we have a really good chance to succeed, but we need some people back on the field. How am I supposed to run an offense when we're missing our best receiver, our other starting outside receiver, and two offensive linemen? I mean, Terry is a unique one because the other ones are all injuries. But yeah, I mean, I think they need him back. I think it's like, I know a lot of people were equating him being taken off the PUP list and Dan Quinn saying that he's probably going to start practicing soon with them as a sign of a contract getting done soon. I think that's a completely wrong way to look at it. It is everybody being logical that if Terry is going to play this year, he needs to get going. He can't just wait until the last day, sign a contract 3 days before the game and then get play. You got to get moving
or just start practicing 3 days before the first game under the current contract. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you got to give yourself some lag time. And we've talked about this. To me, this was the bigger, obviously the contract is the bigger story, but the immediate story is, hey, when does he have to start practicing? So they, if this is accurate, he's going to start up next week. I think that's a good sign just in terms of the logic of this. But beyond that, we'll have to see. I mean, my sense has been they're still stuck the way they have been, throughout. I don't know if Terry would ultimately say, the heck with it, I'll just play out this contract. I don't know if whatever they're offering to him, he says, all right, fine, it's not getting me the money I was looking for, but it's still, plenty good or what have you. So that's the part that I still don't know. I don't think most of us don't know, but again, I think him going back to practice, assuming that happens next week, is a very positive sign, just in terms of if it gets done, that he'd be, close to ready as go as possible.
Yeah. I mean, if he chooses to go out and start, practicing on grass, as Cliff Kingsbury mentioned, big difference on grass versus, walkthroughs, et cetera. Then the question then becomes, okay, he's going to be ready physically and otherwise for the opener against the Giants. Does he play that game with a new contract? Does he play that game without a new contract? Or does he, at that point, decide to hold out of a game? So those are the three options, because trade's certainly not an option. So taking the update of where we both are on a daily basis, it seems like over the last many weeks. Where are you today?
I think kind of where I've been the last, while. Like, it doesn't seem like this should be that complicated based on how we all sort of look at. I think how we assess the player, how we assess the market, how we assess how these things tend to work. But if the team has a very different opinion of what, how much money they would like to pay him, and I do think it is important to note, you are paying for what's to come. You're not paying for past production. And, if their numbers and models and everything else suggest that receivers at this age, when he turns 30, it's going to start to fall off potentially, then you don't want to put in a lot of money to somebody if you think it's not going to be worth it in a couple of years. And that's where they have to, the two sides have got to figure these things out. What's so funny, I was thinking about this the other day, is all this talk about Terry being 30. They are the oldest team in the league. Terry, they keep signing guys who are way older than Terry to be on the team. Of course, these guys are only signing like 1 year deals.
They're not being asked to pay $75 million guaranteed and $33 million a year.
No, 100%. I'm just saying, it's just funny that it's not like they're shying away from older guys, and
right.
I think that's going to lead to a whole different question going into next season. But
sure,
I don't know, man. I guess I still believe something will get done. It's just the longer this goes, I just don't know how much either side is going to be willing to compromise. Because if they haven't gotten there by now, I don't know what's going to have to happen for that to occur. I guess I'm almost feeling like the play out the contract is starting to feel like maybe that's the way this is going to go. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I Adam Schefter early this morning kind of said what you said, and that is that. Terry being activated off the PUP list doesn't mean much as it relates to the contract. It's still status quo. They're not close. Terry McLaurin still wants something north of DK Metcalf. Washington thinks he's worth much less than that. The standoff continues. I'll go with where I've been, which is I still think that Terry will end up giving in a big way. He'd be insane not to take the guaranteed money that they are offering, that they don't have to offer, roughly, let's just say, call it $50 million in guaranteed, because I don't know that opportunity will ever exist for him again in this league. And that is, a pretty sizable bird in hand. So I'm going to stick with, I still think that a deal will get done before the opener, and I think it'll be because Terry ends up giving, and maybe they make it look like a $30 million average or something like that, or maybe they get to 30 and he comes down from where he is, and it's kind of a win-win or a lose-lose, however you want to look at it. But I'm still predicting that. It's just, Ben, at the end of the day, there's too much from Terry's side, unless they are so delusional and so hurt. He won't get this opportunity again, more likely than not. $50 million in the bank versus what? Maybe a franchise tag next year for half that? Not half that, but 3/5 of that. This is the last and best, opportunity for him to get that kind of guaranteed money.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is why this has been sort of hard to figure out. What is the holdup? It doesn't seem like whatever the gap in value, and obviously, any negotiation, as we've all deal with in life, there's going to be the buyer and the seller are going to have different views, but it shouldn't be so ginormous that you can't get to a middle ground. And it does feel the more time goes on, again, Adam Peters wasn't negotiating contracts in San Francisco, but the 49ers were known as a team that was looking to win these battles. It wasn't just, let's meet in the middle. Like, no, this is what we think, and we're going to go this way. And it seems as if that's what Peters is doing, for better or for worse. And, eventually it does seem like Terry's going to have to make a call as to what he wants to do. I mean, you're totally right in terms of the total money. If he does play out the season and they do tag him next year, right, then he's getting I think the tag is at least $28 million. Maybe
it's like
higher,
it's like 44 to 45 versus maybe 50 plus. So yes, it's true, but he's not going to get 50 today. That's a pay as you go.
Yeah, no, and also he could, there's a world where he doesn't have a good year or he gets hurt,
yeah, exactly,
whatever, and then all of a sudden his value takes a hit. So yeah, like I said, it's just bizarre to me that it has gone on for this long. And I do think that whenever there's an autopsy done of this, regardless of what transpires, it will be interesting to see did Washington win the battle, lose the war type deal. Like, fine, maybe they get Terry for the value that they think is appropriate all the way, but it's now been a pretty public situation. The other guys in the locker room, to whatever degree that matters, are seeing this. And if you're not going to pay this guy, as we've discussed, then who are you going to pay? So that to me will be interesting. Is do we learn more about what actually was going on in the negotiation? How hardline was Peters truly, and what does that mean about this place going forward?
Yeah, I think when and if an autopsy is done, one of the things, and I talked about this on my last show last week on Thursday, I think they think the war is different. I think they believe that, by offering him this deal, it is an acknowledgement of how important he is and what a great guy he is and how important he is to the culture of the team, because a lot of teams wouldn't even consider necessarily offering what they're offering with him under contract and with the flexibility of a franchise tag going into his age 31 season. That's my guess, is that they view it as, we don't have to do this, but we are doing it because we like the player a lot. Anyway, all right. You said something I just want to be clear on. You said 2 offensive linemen. Cosme and Coleman are the 2 you're talking about that are banged up. You're not talking about Tunsil, right?
Correct. I mean, I think Tunsil is.
Yes.
I think he just he's at a point of his career where he's, I think, always going to be a bit banged up. But no, yeah, I'm talking about Coleman, and obviously, right, Cosby's out, but you know.
So defensively, who are we going to see tonight, and who aren't we going to see? Because I think this is going to be. Look, no game planning, all of that said, but we'll get some mano-a-mano matchups. I just had Ben Baby on from Cincinnati. He said their offensive line is a bit in shambles. So I'll take that into consideration in terms of the D-line's performance. But to see Lattimore matched up against Higgins and or Chase, or both for the first time in his career, Amos, those are the things that I'm looking forward to watching. So who are we going to see out there, and who aren't we going to see out there?
Well, I think one thing that was impressive about this team last year was, sure, they played some bad teams and they murdered those bad teams. They didn't just squeak it out. They stomped on them for the most part. Okay, so the Bengals offensive line, Washington, yeah. So if the Bengals offensive line is beat up, then for the most part. But if their offensive line is beat up, then let's see Deron Payne and Dorrance Armstrong, and Javon Kinlaw, all those guys take advantage of it. Again, in the scrimmage the other day, they were the group that really controlled the game because Washington's first team offensive line was a bit in shambles. Von Miller's out today, and Bobby Wagner's out. The Wagner one's pretty interesting because this will also be the first real test to see how the run defense looks now that they've got all these bigger guys in there. But not to have Wagner in there and then no Jordan McGee either means Duke Riley, who just got here last week, or Kane Madrano, the 6th-round rookie, playing in Wagner's spot. That's not necessarily ideal, and that's kind of where the running backs get funneled into. But nonetheless, this is a good spot for this defensive line. Again, I think the depth looks good. They've raised the floor accordingly. The upside is the question mark. And, again, for whatever you get out of a couple series in preseason, I think to me that's the group I want to see. If they're giving up, I mean, Chase Brown's very good as a running back, and obviously Joe Burrow is tremendous. So giving up yards to the Bengals is not an insult. But let's see them be formidable. Let's see them hold up at the line in ways we didn't always last year. I mean, even within this matchup, the Bengals got yards all over the place, and just Washington just got more.
We'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.
Yeah, man. See ya.
Ben Standing, everybody. Our Team 980 training camp coverage is brought to you nationally by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico. When we come back, Dan Quinn had a lot to say about Terry being activated off the PUP list the other day. You'll hear some of that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. When you get there, just hit the subscribe button and hit the like button.
And I think I saw earlier today the announcement regarding Terry off of PUP. So that's good news, and that'll begin like the return to play process for him. And really, it's similar to like what a lot of those guys that I just spoke about and where they're at on their returns and doing walkthroughs and begin other parts of it. That's the Colemans and Mariotas and McGee's and into that same space. So just into that same trajectory. And so we've got a real process in our return to play that we believe in. We know it works, and we'll hit all those steps as well. So wanted to hit you up on that, and then we can get rolling with the game and everything ready for it.
Yeah. Well, there would be more questions about Terry coming up the pup list, and you'll hear a lot of what Dan Quinn said about that. This summer, by the way, your air conditioning, God, was it hot and steamy yesterday. Your AC has been working overtime to keep your house cool and comfortable. Are you ready to change that? How about replacing your older windows with custom-built high-quality windows from Window Nation? Window Nation measures 3 times to ensure your windows fit perfectly and keep your home comfortable year-round. Their installation crews finish the job in a day or less, so you enjoy the rest of the summer with minimal disruption. Get the windows you want to protect and beautify your home. Choose from over 1,500 styles and colors. And with installation crews super experienced, they average over a decade of experience, you can trust Window Nation to install your windows right the first time. Window Nation offers a lifetime warranty on all their windows, so you can relax knowing your home is protected far into the future. Right now, their most popular offer of the year, 50% off on all window styles with nothing owed until the year 2027 for 2 years. No money down, no payments, no interest for 2 full years. I trust Window Nation. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. You've got a 96% customer satisfaction rating with Window Nation and over 45,000 five-star reviews for a company that's installed over 3 million windows across the country. Call them now for your fast, free home estimate at 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com. Before I play for you the rest of some of what Quinn said, I wanted to emphasize something that I talked about on Thursday's show that a lot of you reacted to. And I just sort of mentioned it with Ben when Ben said, the issue when the autopsy is done is, did they win the battle, lose the war? Their feeling about what this is about, I think, is much different than everyone else's or a lot of people. They feel like they're doing something they don't have to do, and yet they're doing it anyway. And that is based on the analytics of the position, wide receiver, age, what happens, age 31 and older. Offering Terry just say something in the neighborhood of $50 million guaranteed is acknowledgement about how they feel about him, the person, the player, the culture setter, etc. Because they don't have to do it. And a lot of teams would have been in position to either, or if they were in the same position, wouldn't have done it, or would have offered somewhere in that, early range of what Jeremy Fowler had talked about, when he first talked about the $23 million for someone his age. You just don't have a lot of precedent of a receiver getting the kind of deal that, fans would even want the team to pay. Because I think most people are like, yeah, if Terry asked for $35 million plus, which was the Charles Robinson information from last week, that I have a feeling was probably pretty close, even if they were willing to step back to the DK Metcalf deal, $33 million and $60 guaranteed. I think, jaws dropped, as Charles Robinson said, to say, wait a minute, we're coming to you to offer you a contract extension, something we don't have to do, and quite honestly, probably shouldn't do, because we have you under contract and then have the flexibility in what may be your last super productive year. Now, we can argue as to whether or not Terry's only got 2 years left. That's, based on whether or not you're into the heavy wide receiver age analytics like the team apparently is. But I think that their view is just different than most others. they would love to get a deal done with Terry, but they just aren't going to come anywhere near certainly where his first or even second, kind of level, ask was. They just think that would be a massive overpayment. It would also be a terrible precedent to set for the team with big contracts coming up in the offseason. And, while they, I mentioned they like the player and this is why they're doing it, I think they also realize what the player is. The player's a really good player. He's not a great player. He's not somebody who, with less wear and tear at 30, because he's so dominant that you're just going to make a very special case for and meet his demands. It's not where they are. And yet, I think from their perspective, they wish people understood, but it's not their job, and they're not going to go out and succumb to fan or media pressure. But I guess there is a disconnect for them because they feel like they're doing the right thing by just offering him a contract extension in an area in which, very few teams would do it. Now, very few teams have him. Very few teams are in the window that Washington's in. I don't think that they would say we don't need him. I don't think they would say that. I bet they would say they don't need him as much as some others out there would say they need him, but they would certainly feel like they need him. But they also kind of feel like, hey, this is something we don't need to do, but we are doing it anyway. They're just completely delusional as to what the value is for him in this moment. And we can't go there. Here was some other Dan Quinn from Saturday. He was asked about Terry and working out. Here's what he said.
Yeah, that's all part of the PUP of like returning to play. Yeah, he's on the same trajectory as everybody else of doing the workouts and making good strides. So that was why the move was made.
So will they get him on the field? He was asked about how important it is to get Terry reps.
Yeah, I think more often you just kind of follow the guidelines of how things are going, and then you're ready for the next step. And so he's really just putting into the same group of, although the other guys started training camp, they got injured, but now they're able to participate in the walkthroughs and that. So that's also part of the return to play of getting back with the guys where you can do that. Like the PUP is really focused on rehab. And then once you're leaving that, think of it like, all right, I'm shifting the focus from rehab into returning to play. And I think if you could differentiate those, like for you and for the readers, that helps, like, okay, there's a shift that's beginning to take place.
So that shift, let's just make sure that we all remember this. This shift started on August 16th. Okay. So it's 22 days. It's more than 3 weeks before the season opener. He is healthy. He's off the PUP list. The PUP list was more rehab. Now he's ready to ramp up to playing. 22 days is plenty of time to ramp up to play. Remember, during the regular season, when you come off that PUP list, it's 21 days to activate. So more time than that. This was him, the head coach, Dan Quinn, talking about, Saturday and Terry's, day one of the ramp up process.
Yeah, like yesterday had a big push on some days. So there's some days that you go really, as high as you can, then other days it's low and even like recovery work to go. So for instance, 2 other players had high days today and off tomorrow, and then that'll even continue into Monday, into the game. So it's a little bit by day. Nikki, I think, it was 2 or 3 at a peak high and then backed off today, and then you'll go again. So like all these markers we're trying to hit, and you can't go like red line it every day. So you want to make sure, all right, on the days that we're really pushing it, that you really go there. And then the days that you work strength and recovery pieces, then you do that too.
So you heard Ben, what he said, that, coming off the PUP list has really nothing to do with, the current state of negotiations. Adam Schefter reiterated that this morning, saying it's still status quo. They're nowhere close to a deal, despite Terry coming off the PUP list. This is what Quinn said when he was asked if returning from the PUP has any impact on the contract negotiations.
No, I would say, from the medical side, contract, like definitely separate. This is about his getting ready to play, which is, like honestly awesome. And, like, it's just cool, to see him, getting closer, because now, like, okay, steps are getting closer to return to being on the field. So he's worked hard, and just like the other guys have, they want to get back out there with the teammates and doing things. So I get that, but we just have a real process. We're not going to miss the steps and put them out there before guys are ready to do their thing in all the different locations. So that's where we're at.
A little bit more of DQ on Terry McLaurin. This was, was Terry involved in timing, the timing of bringing him back, and then what's next for him?
Doesn't mean you're back practicing and doing all that just yet, but it does mean, like, steps are going forward.
Okay. So that was 8 that you just played, right?
Yeah, that was the rest of 8.
Okay, that was the rest of 8. All right, let's go to the one where he was asked about whether or not it's number 9, whether or not this puts Terry on a path to be back for week 1 against the Giants.
Yeah, there's markers to hit, but it gives you a runway to be able to do that. And if you can continue to hit, the D-cells, the different ones for him, and all of those guys are in the same boat right now. And there'll be more, into Monday and Tuesday, and then a few days after that. So you just kind of, if you can reach that one, and I go for the next one, and I go for the next one. But if you don't go to this third one if you ain't hit number 2 yet.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things, and I don't know that this was followed up on, and maybe it's assumed. So they take him off the PUP list. You hear Quinn talking about the ramp-up process, which eventually includes him being on the field. As Cliff Kingsbury said, he's got to be on the grass. He's got to take reps. Will Terry take those reps? He's not going to play tonight. All right. And then they don't have a practice tomorrow. Then they do have a practice on Wednesday, but that'll be the last one before the Ravens game on Saturday night, because there's no team joint workout with the Ravens. That got canceled last week. So if Terry is now a hold-in and he is healthy as a hold-in, not on the PUP list, and he doesn't want to go out and take reps, then I guess they can start to fine him again. We'll see. So that's basically it from Quinn. He was asked, and you can go to DQ14, Max, would Terry play in the preseason finale against the Ravens on Saturday night?
It would be hard at that spot based on where we're, how quick the turnaround is, Nikki, from Monday to Saturday. Let's get back playing, then we'll have a better sense for that. So I wouldn't rule anything out, but I think that'd probably be a little quicker than we should.
Yeah, it would be quicker, and he wouldn't be out there with Jaden Daniels more likely than not. So we're not going to see Terry in the preseason. So there you go. The latest from over the weekend on Terry McLaurin. When we come back, that NFL players top 100 list has continued. Some interesting spots for a few players. The last Washington player, if you recall, was Terry McLaurin at 52. Jaden has not hit the list yet, which means he is nearing being a top 25 player per the other players around the league. We'll get to some of that and what Caleb Williams did last night for the Bears when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
All right, here's what's happening on this Monday, August 18th. Per Jordan Schultz, the Washington Commanders are listening to offers on Brian Robinson Jr. This news comes after a groundswell of preseason support for 7th-round pick Ja'Cory Bill Krosky-Merritt and veteran Jeremy McNichols. Plus, Cliff Kingsbury also said that prior to this weekend, he likes the running back room a lot and thinks that every guy has a place in this league. To baseball, after being DFA'd by the Washington Nationals, Nathaniel Lowe is hammering out a deal with the Boston Red Sox. The 30-year-old finds a new home prior to the playoff push, and the Red Sox get an answer to their season-long questions at first base. The Nats, they fall to the Phillies by a score of 11-9. Not a great day for Mitch Parker after giving up 6 runs in 1 2/3 innings, but the Nats were able to tie it at 6 in the 3rd inning, get Aaron Nola off the bump, but the Phillies able to pull it away and close it out to knot the series at 2 games apiece. Plus, after months of trying to hammer out a deal, the Cincinnati Bengals are reportedly listening to trade calls on Trey Hendrickson. According to the reports, teams that have inquired are the Panthers, Browns, and Colts. Plus, the Commanders will take on the Cincinnati Bengals tonight. Dan Quinn says he is excited to get the boys going and looking to get a few series out of JD5 and the starters. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the call. That'll be at 8 p.m. on ESPN. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending. All right. Well, a little bit of a weird ending to the show, but we had some technical difficulties. So Chris Russell is coming up next. I got him here. Hey, Chris, what's going on, buddy?
Hi, Mad Max. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I heard you had some interesting things happen over this weekend.
Well, interesting is one way to put it. Alarming and perplexing and disillusioned and costly. Yes, that is one way to put it. But we put our lives back together. We're human beings. We're not perfect. Things don't always go the way you want, Max. And
it's true.
You just kind of try and persevere.
Yeah, well, that's how we do it. All righty, Chris Russell coming up next on here on the Team 980. Kevin will be back tomorrow. Chris, up next.